Chapter 1470. Who is it? At this moment, all the experts in the surroundings were looking up at the starry sky. That aura was so formidable that it shocked them. Under everyone's gazes, the space in the sky suddenly split open. In the next moment, a middle-aged man walked out from within the space that had split open. The middle-aged man wore a gray robe with wide sleeves, and his hands were hidden within them. He seemed like a scholar, quiet and refined. Yi Xian frowned slightly because he didn't recognize the middle-aged man. Suddenly, a voice resounded in Yi Xian's mind. Wu Li, the martial emperor. It was Lan Ruo's voice. The martial emperor. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard this. He knew who it was. It was that big shot who imprisoned Jia Long and the others. Yi Xian was quite puzzled. Why has he made an appearance at this moment? Wu Li looked down at Yi Xian and said, "Where's that woman?" Jia Lu. Yi Xian was about to speak when Jia Lu appeared by Yi Xian's side. At this moment, Jia Lu had attained the peak of the Tao attainment realm under the full support of the fifth dimension. It could be said that she was only a little bit away from attaining the union realm. Jia Lu stared Wu Li in the eyes without a trace of fear. Conversely, her eyes were filled with killing intent. It could be said that it was like the eyes of an enemy that had met. Meanwhile, Wu Li suddenly slapped his palm down. The space in the sky above Jia Lu collapsed. At practically the exact same moment, Jia Lu smashed her fist forward. She was going head-on against it. She had no choice but to go head-on against it because Wu Li's punch had sealed off the space around her. Rumble. Along with a deafening explosion, the space where Jia Lu stood collapsed, and she was instantly pushed back thousands of meters. As soon as she stopped moving, the dragon scales on her body cracked inch by inch. Not only that, but even her Tao body shattered at this moment. Everyone in the surroundings was shocked when they witnessed this scene. Right at this moment, Wu Li smashed his fist forward again. Hiss. The space in front of Jia Lu collapsed, and a fist mark flashed out, heading straight for Jia Lu. The powerful fist force was like a tsunami, directly crushing the space in front of Jia Lu and deforming it. Jia Lu's pupils constricted. She couldn't block this punch. Jia Lu did not close her eyes. Even at this moment, there was no fear in her eyes. Right at this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly slashed down. Boom! The fist mark was forced to a stop by the sword light, but the next moment, the sword light shattered, and the fist mark broke through the air. Meanwhile, Yi Xian appeared in front of Jia Lu, and a trace of ferocity flashed through his eyes as he slashed with his sword. He directly used the power of his bloodline and the power of the unparalleled sword. Boom! As soon as the sword descended, the fist collapsed, and Yi Xian and Jia Lu were instantly blasted back over 3 kilometers. After stopping, Yi Xian's entire right hand trembled slightly. In the sky, Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. "Do you think that I don't dare to kill you?" Yi Xian looked Wu Li in the eyes. "I promised a senior from the Jia Dragon clan that I would take care of Miss Jia Lu. I, Yi Xian, keep my word." Wu Li nodded. "I know that you have many powerful backers, but..." Yi Xian suddenly said, "I'll fight you one-on-one." One-on-one. Wu Li's eyes narrowed slightly. "Fight me one-on-one." Yi Xian looked Wu Li in the eyes. "I don't know what enmity you have with the Jia dragons, and I don't want to know. I'll fight you one-on-one, and I, Yi Xian, will take over the enmity between you and the Jia dragons." A trace of gratification flashed through the eyes of the mysterious woman in the clouds, and she smiled. At least he's responsible. He didn't bring shame to his parents. Nian Nian gazed into the distance in silence. In the distance, behind Yi Xian, Jia Lu tugged on Yi Xian's sleeve and shook her head. Yi Xian smiled. "I promised your grandfather that I would protect you. I keep my word." Then Jia Lu looked at Yi Xian. "This enmity is between me, Jia Lu, and him." Yi Xian said, "The Jia dragons have been kind to me." Jia Lu said in a low voice, "He's very strong." Yi Xian smiled. "One can't be ungrateful." As he spoke, He raised his head to look at Wu Li. What do you think? Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. It's not fair for you to fight me one-on-one. Yi Xian said, then lower your realm and fight me. The crowd. In the clouds, the mysterious woman suddenly laughed. This little fellow is really interesting. This Wu Li is really unlucky to have encountered such a thick-skinned fellow. In the distance, Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. What if I don't lower my realm? Yi Xian smiled. Then I'll challenge someone of a higher realm. It's not shameful if I lose, and it's a huge profit if I win. Everyone had a strange expression on their faces. Needless to say, this was indeed the case. Wu Li slowly walked towards Yi Xian. With every step he took, his aura became weaker. When he was several dozen feet away from Yi Xian, his realm had already been suppressed to the consolidation realm. Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. Suppressing to the consolidation realm is my limit. Yi Xian smiled. That's enough. As his voice fell, he suddenly raised his sword and rushed forward. In front of Wu Li, the space was suddenly torn apart, and a ray of sword light appeared. Wu Li slightly leaned to the side, and a sword passed right between his eyebrows. At this time, his right hand suddenly swept out. Bang! A ray of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian instantly retreated thousands of feet. The moment he stopped, the flesh in front of his chest split open, and blood flowed out. Seeing this scene, the expressions of many experts in the fifth dimension sank. Yi Xian looked at his chest, and his expression gradually became solemn. This martial emperor's moves were very simple: speed and power. In terms of speed and power, he was suppressed. At this time, Wu Li took a step forward, and with this step, a fist imprint suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was already prepared, and he raised his sword and slashed. Bang! The space where Yi Xian was directly collapsed, and his entire body was sent several thousand feet back. Before he could stop, Wu Li took another step forward, and with each step, he threw a punch. It was a very simple punch. At this time, in the distance, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot. In the next instant, he gripped his sword with both hands and fiercely slashed forward. The moment his sword fell, 4 kinds of domains directly enveloped Wu Li. Bang! Within the domains, the fist imprint directly shattered, and Wu Li retreated several dozen feet. Seeing this scene, the experts of the fifth dimension immediately breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that there was still a fight. In the distance, Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. 4 kinds of domains. Yi Xian nodded. Wu Li said in a light voice, I'm slightly surprised. As he spoke, he took another step forward. Bang! The space in front of Yi Xian suddenly collapsed, and in the next moment, an afterimage flashed by. The strength of this afterimage was so strong that even 4 kinds of domains found it difficult to suppress it. Right at this moment, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and in the next moment, he suddenly slashed down with his sword. As this sword descended, Wu Li's pupils suddenly constricted, and he changed from offense to defense. He raised his right arm horizontally to block. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, Wu Li retreated explosively by several hundred feet. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. What kind of power is this? In the distance, Bai Dizzy was slightly excited. He knew what kind of power this was. The power of faith. This was the power of faith of all the living beings in the fifth dimension. And now, Yi Xian was using this power of faith. The purest power of faith. At this moment, Yi Xian wasn't alone. He represented everyone who believed in him. The power of faith. Above the clouds, the mysterious woman. She said in a light voice, very pure power of faith. Behind her, the Divine Lord's expression was extremely gloomy. Nian Nian looked into the distance and still didn't speak, but there was a trace of gratification in her eyes. She knew that the reason Yi Xian was able to possess such pure power of faith was because the living beings in the fifth dimension trusted him. In other words, Yi Xian was sufficiently good to all the living beings in the fifth dimension. In the distance, Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. The power of faith. Yi Xian grinned. Take another strike from me. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, twisted his wrist, and slashed down with his sword. Hiss! A ray of sword light tore through the sky. In the distance, Wu Li suddenly clenched his right hand, and then he smashed his fist forward. Bang! The space where his fist descended directly transformed into a vortex, and a powerful force poured out like a torrent. At this moment, the heavens and earth shook and split. Rumble. As soon as the two powerful forces came into contact, it was like a volcanic eruption. The powerful force swept across the entire world, and the expressions of the surrounding consolidation realm experts changed drastically, and they all retreated. Below, a huge light screen suddenly rose from the Dao city. A protective shield. This was a protective shield built by the Xuanji sect with all their might. It was to prevent the powerful forces from entering the fifth dimension and causing a devastating blow to the fifth dimension. The remaining power was completely blocked by the protective barrier. However, the entire protective barrier was also shattered. In the sky, Wu Li retreated more than 300 feet, but Yi Xian didn't even take a step back. At this time, Yi Xian not only had the blessing of 4 kinds of domains, but also the power of faith of the fifth dimension. His current strength had exceeded the scope of the consolidation realm. Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. He knew that if he didn't restore his realm, with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Yi Xian. He had underestimated this young man in front of him. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Your Excellency Martial Emperor, today, I, Yi Xian, took advantage of you, and this is quite unfair to you. How about this, in a year, let's fight again. At that time, you don't have to suppress your realm. Fight more." Wu Li looked at Yi Xian. "You want to delay for a year?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes." Wu Li's expression was calm. "Do you really have to interfere in the affairs of the Naga Dragon clan?" Yi Xian said, "I have to repay the kindness of others." Wu Li stared at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian said again, "Just 1 year. A year later, I, Yi Xian, will fight you fairly. I can swear to the heavens that if there are people behind me, I won't let them interfere. Do you think it's feasible?" Wu Li slowly loosened his right hand. "A year later, life and death." "A life and death." Yi Xian said, "Sure." Wu Li glanced at Jianghu. "Your grandfather found a good person for you." With that, he turned and left. After walking a few steps, he suddenly turned his head and looked at a certain place in the clouds. "Your Excellency, as you wish." With that, he quickly disappeared not far away. Above the clouds, Nian Nian suddenly said, "Congratulations." The mysterious woman blinked. "What are you congratulating me for?" Nian Nian looked at the mysterious woman. "If Wu Li wants to kill Jianghu, he will need your help, because he will soon discover that his opponent will grow very quickly, so quickly that it will exceed his expectations. At that time, even if he is unwilling, he can only ask for help from you. And if he asks for help from you, then isn't the entire ultimate martial realm in your pocket? And with your intelligence, you should not be plotting just this. If I'm not wrong, the ultimate martial realm is not simple. What do you think?" The mysterious woman looked at Nian Nian, and after a moment, she suddenly smiled and said, "If it wasn't for that kid below, I would be very willing to be friends with you, because you are too smart. Unfortunately, we can only be enemies." Nian Nian took out a stick of Tunghulu. "You made a move, now, it's my turn." The mysterious woman slightly raised the corner of her mouth, looking forward to it. Chapter 1471. With Wu Li's departure, the entire fifth dimension completely calmed down. There were no cheers. Because the fifth dimension had also suffered heavy casualties. In the sky, Yi Xian looked up at the clouds in the sky. The next moment, he appeared directly above the clouds. However, there was nothing here. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and left. After returning to Dao City's Dao Hall, Nian Nian was sitting on the stone steps in front of the hall. She was holding a Tunghulu in her hand. Yi Xian walked in front of Nian Nian. Nian Nian looked up at Yi Xian. Is it over? Yi Xian smiled. It's over for now. Nian Nian grinned. She took out a lively fish. Grilled fish. Yi Xian laughed. All right. As he spoke, he pulled Nian Nian into the hall. Grilled fish. The two sat next to each other. Nian Nian hugged Yi Xian's arm and leaned her head against Yi Xian's shoulder. There was a sweet smile on her face. At this moment, Bai Dizzy walked into the hall. Looking at the White Emperor, Yi Xian said with a smile, "Have a seat." Bai Dizzy shook her head. "I'll just stand." Yi Xian did not insist. "Let's talk." Bai Dizzy hesitated for a moment. "Do you still have money?" Hearing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He said in shock, "You ran out of money?" Bai Dizzy nodded. "I've basically spent all the money you gave me." Yi Xian blinked. "All spent?" 3 billion. Bai Dizzy nodded slightly. Yi Xian was a little curious. "How did you spend it?" He knew that Bai Dizzy was usually not extravagant. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, "Those pills were basically given to the most outstanding people. As for these fortune divine crystals, they have many uses. Among them, I used 1 billion fortune divine crystals to support the world below." Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. "The world below?" Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, "It's just some low-level worlds. These worlds are very, very backward. Then, I used your name to establish a few martial arts academies in these backward worlds. The name of the academy is called Fifth Dimensional Academy, and you are the dean. Those who meet certain requirements can enter the martial arts academy for free. Based on preliminary estimates, we have already established more than 1 million fifth dimensional academies. Moreover, we are still expanding. This expenditure is extremely large, but it is extremely meaningful." Yi Xian said, "Tell me." Bai Dizzy nodded. "There are two main reasons why the five-dimensional universe is lagging behind other worlds. The first is the upper limit." "What is the upper limit?" "This is the martial arts civilization of our five-dimensional universe. Before there was the Tao scripture, other than the five-dimensional Tendo, the ceiling of the five-dimensional universe's martial Tao was release 1, and it was a fake release 1. But now, it is different. We have the Tao scripture, and with the addition of the whirling world, our current upper limit is no different from the Tao sect. But what about the lower limit? Some of the worlds below the five-dimensional universe are too backward. Some of them are even in the savage era. My idea is very simple. We will establish fifth-dimensional academies in various places to give those backward worlds a chance to learn martial arts, and also give them a chance to change their destiny. When there are more and more outstanding people, it will be much easier for us to change the entire five-dimensional universe." After saying this, he paused, then continued, "Of course, there is also some selfishness. I established the fifth dimensional academy in your name. It can be said that as long as someone comes out of our academy, they will be your student. And these people will worship you like a god. The more students there are, the more power of belief you will have. This is a win-win situation. The most important thing is that we can also unearth more talents. Some people, it is not that they do not have the ability, it is not that they do not work hard, it is just that they do not have the opportunity, they do not have the platform. If we give them the opportunity and platform, they will not be worse than anyone else." Yi Xian pondering. Bai Dizzy hesitated for a while, then said, "This matter is my own initiative." Yi Xian smiled and said, "You think too much. You have done very well. I have to say, in terms of the overall situation, we are inferior to you. As for the matter of money, I will think of a way." Bai Dizzy nodded, "If you say so, then I can rest assured. There is one more thing, and that is, I have collected the martial arts books of the Daoting and Saha world. These martial arts books and divine techniques, I have already ordered people to compile them. When the time comes, they will be stored in the various academies. As long as you meet the requirements, you will be able to cultivate. However, for the time being, Tao scriptures, martial arts, and Tao scripture cultivation methods will be placed in our Tao City's 5th Dimensional Academy. The Tao City's 5th Dimensional Academy is the main academy. This place will be the holy land in the hearts of all the students of the 5th Dimensional Academy. Everyone will strive to cultivate in order to come here. Because only by coming here can you learn the legendary Tao scripture martial arts and Tao scripture mental cultivation methods. The most important thing is, only by coming here can you see the mysterious Dean. Yi Xian, Bai Dizzy smiled faintly, if you want to come here, it will be very, very difficult. It can be said that among millions of people, only one person can come here, because we only recruit 30 people every year. At that time, when the headquarters starts to recruit, you must personally come to take a look, you will definitely be shocked. Because those who can come to the headquarters must be super evildoers. Those kind of true super evildoers. Yi Xian smiled and said, I am looking forward to it. As he said this, he hesitated for a while, then said, everything you have done is very good, but, in terms of culture, Bai Dizzy smiled and said, don't worry, all the academies cultivate both literature and martial arts. Cultivating literature, which is also cultivating the mind, is equally important as cultivating martial arts. Yi Xian nodded, you have thought it through very thoroughly. As he said this, he looked at Nian Nian, who was beside him. Nian Nian's contribution to the 5-dimensional universe being able to have what it is today is indispensable. Her contribution to the 5-dimensional universe should be known by everyone in the 5-dimensional universe. Bai Dizzy glanced at Nian Nian and nodded, I know, in cultural classes, there is an article about a person's biography. Only people who have made great contributions to the 5-dimensional universe can be included in this article. Currently, there are only 2 people, one is Miss Nian Nian, and the other is you. Miss Nian Nian is ranked 1st, and you are ranked 2nd. In addition, we have also built Miss Nian Nian's memorial courtyards all over the world, which have detailed records of Miss Nian Nian's contributions to the 5-dimensional universe. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy and said with a smile, you are really thoughtful. Bai Dizzy said softly, whether it is Miss Nian Nian or you, even if what you have done for the 5-dimensional universe is not praised by the world, it should not be forgotten by the world. In fact, the 5-dimensional universe was a burden to both Yi Xian and Nian Nian. As long as Mu Nian gave up on the 5-dimensional universe, other than the 3 swords, she was almost invincible. To Nian Nian, without the 5-dimensional universe, she would be even stronger. As if he had thought of something, Bai Dizzy said, one more thing, we have already formulated a law. As long as you nod your head, it can be implemented in the entire 5-dimensional universe. As he said that, he took out a thick book and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian took it and glanced at it. A moment later, he looked at Bai Dizzy, is this law only for the people at the bottom, or for everyone? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian, for everyone. Including you. Even you don't have the privilege. Yi Xian nodded, then that's enough. After saying that, he handed the book to Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy took the book and said, then I'll start implementing it. Yi Xian nodded. Bai Dizzy retreated. Yi Xian handed the roasted fish to Nian Nian and said with a smile, eat. Nian Nian took the roasted fish and said with a smile, I'm going out to play. After saying that, she picked up the roasted fish and left the hall. Only Yi Xian was left in the hall. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and spread his hands. Suddenly, a mysterious power appeared around him. The power of faith. He could feel that his power of faith was continuously becoming stronger. This power of faith was very strong. If not for this power of faith, he would not have been able to do anything to Wu Li. However, he also understood that this power did not completely belong to him, Yi Xian. This was given to him by all living beings. If one day, he went against the flow and the 5-dimensional universe collapsed, then this power of faith would disappear. He could not rely too much on this power of faith. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian took out a scroll. This was the content and notes of the 9th volume of the Tao Scripture. It also contained the 9th volume of the Tao Scripture's mental cultivation method and Tao Scripture martial arts. Life Fist. The 9th volume of the Tao scripture martial arts was Life Fist. When he saw the content of this Life Fist, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. What was Life Fist? By burning one's lifespan as the price, one could obtain endless lifespan power. Lifespan power. This was the first time Yi Xian heard of this power. By burning 1 year of lifespan, one could obtain 10 years of cultivation. By burning 100 years, one could obtain 1,000 years of cultivation. By burning 1,000 years, one could obtain 10,000 years of cultivation. Not only that, when burning one's lifespan, one could also trigger one's own destiny power. Yi Xian closed the ancient book and could not calm down for a long time. This thing could not be easily cultivated. This Life Fist was extremely profound and mysterious. It also involved the power of destiny and some karma power. In any case, he did not understand it. Most importantly, this thing needed to burn one's lifespan. And he, Yi Xian, did not have much lifespan left. His current lifespan was less than 1,000 years. If he burned his lifespan, he was afraid that he would directly die. Moreover, this Life Fist was not something he could cultivate just because he wanted to. It was extremely difficult. Not to mention, one of the difficulties was the physical body. His physical body must be at the consolidation realm before he could reluctantly cultivate it. Reluctantly. If his physical body was not strong enough, he would not be able to withstand the power obtained by burning his lifespan. In addition, his divine soul must be strong enough. It could be said that this Life Fist had very strict requirements for the cultivator. Yi Xian hesitated. There was no doubt about the power of this Life Fist. Once it was cultivated, its power would not be any weaker than his instant kill sword, or even stronger. Most importantly, he could combine both of them. After burning his lifespan to obtain the power of life, he could use the instant kill sword again. In that case, it could be said that his strength and speed would reach a very terrifying level. However, burning one's lifespan was really not a joke. Moreover, it could be addictive. Because the more lifespan burned, the stronger the power. There was no upper limit. The moment of death was also the moment when he was at his strongest. After a long time, Yi Xian finally chose to cultivate it. However, in order to cultivate this Life Fist, he had to first improve his physical body to the consolidation realm. And now, if he wanted to advance to the consolidation realm, he needed the ancestral dragon's blood, and the ancestral dragon's blood could only be obtained by Taoism. Would Taoism give it to him? Of course not. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian said softly, "This time, Taoism besieged my 5-dimensional universe. No matter what, they should compensate me for my mental damage." After saying that, he suddenly got up and left. P.S. New month, ask for a few guaranteed monthly tickets to save face. Otherwise, it would be too ugly. FPZW. Chapter 1472. Tao Sect. Somewhere in the hall, Third Lady was sitting cross-legged on the ground. In front of her was a long ruler. Tao Gate ruler. Inside the hall, there were some Tao sect experts. At this moment, everyone's expression was somewhat ugly. In this trip to the 5th dimension, Tao sect could be said to have suffered a great defeat. This time, Tao sect's losses were too heavy. At this moment, Third Lady suddenly opened her eyes. The next moment, she disappeared. In the sky outside the hall, Third Lady appeared in front of a man. This man was Yi Xian. Seeing Third Lady, Yi Xian was secretly on guard. This woman was not simple, he must be careful. Third Lady looked at Yi Xian. "What's the matter?" Yi Xian nodded. Third Lady asked, "What's the matter?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Your Tao sect besieged me, causing indelible damage to my young mind. Shouldn't you compensate me for my mental damage?" Third Lady looked at Yi Xian. "Are you serious?" Yi Xian nodded. Third Lady said, "You want the ancestral dragon's blood?" Yi Xian blinked, he was a little surprised. "How do you know?" Third Lady said again, "You want to cultivate Life Fist?" Yi Xian, third lady asked again, "Are you sure you want to cultivate life fist?" Yi Xian nodded. Third young lady said, "I have to remind you that even in our Taoism, only 2 people have practiced this Taoist scripture martial art." Yi Xian frowned. 2 people? Third lady nodded, "Master and me." Yi Xian blinked. Third lady has cultivated life fist. Third lady looked at Yi Xian. "Is there a problem?" Yi Xian hesitated, then said, "Is it powerful?" Third lady looked at Yi Xian. "Do you want to try?" Yi Xian quickly shook his head. "No need." What a joke. He couldn't even defeat this woman without using her life punch. If she used her life punch, his Taoist body would probably be blasted into smithereens. Third young lady said, "It's impossible for you to learn this life fist by yourself. In other words, you have to take a lot of detours. Do you want me to teach you?" Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "You'll teach me?" The third young lady nodded. "If you want, I can teach you." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" The third young lady turned her head and looked into the distance. "Do you want to go for a walk?" Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. "Sure." Third young lady nodded and walked to the right. Yi Xian followed her. Not long after, the 2 of them arrived at the back of a mountain. There was a Shao Dao at the back of the mountain, and at the end of the Shao Dao was a cliff. The 2 of them walked along the Shao Dao. Third young lady suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, the reason why my second senior brother targeted you like a madman is because you have the Dao scriptures. He's afraid that you'll collect all 9 Dao scriptures and threaten his position. Of course, there's another reason. All these years, the Taoists have been used to being high and mighty. He thinks that the Taoists are number 1 in the world, and no one can offend them. Moreover, he's being used by someone." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Used by someone?" Third young lady turned her head and looked at young Master Yi. "Young Master Yi, you have a very powerful enemy." "How powerful is he?" "I think that if the other party wants to kill you, you won't be able to survive. However, I don't understand why the other party didn't kill you. Perhaps it's because he's afraid of the person behind you." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Who is that person?" Third young lady shook her head. "I don't know him, and I don't want to know him. This is a matter between young Master Yi and the other party. My Taoists doesn't want to interfere." Yi Xian didn't say anything. He had some doubts in his heart. "Who is this enemy?" Third young lady said again, "Young Master Yi, if you want to learn life fist, I can help you. I can even help you improve your physical body to the consolidation realm." Yi Xian looked at third young lady. "What's the condition?" Third young lady smiled slightly. "The grudge between the 5th dimension and the Taoists will be written off." Yi Xian was silent. Third young lady continued, "Young Master Yi, your enemy isn't my Taoists, and my Taoists' enemy isn't you. However, someone wants my Taoists to fight to the death with you, and then let you and my Taoists. Or rather, let you and Master form a bad relationship. However, I feel that there's no need for us to become enemies. First, we don't have any conflict of interest. Second, we don't have any deep hatred. The reason for this situation, other than being used by others, is because my second senior brother's IQ is limited. And now, I'm in charge of the Taoists." Yi Xian asked, "What about second brother?" Third young lady said, "He has been imprisoned by me. He won't appear for at least 100 years. And after 100 years. If young Master Yi hasn't fallen, I think second senior brother shouldn't pose any threat to young Master Yi. What do you think?" Yi Xian asked with a smile, "Can't you tell me who that mysterious person is?" Third young lady said with a smile, "My Taoists can't afford to offend him. Please forgive me, young Master Yi." Yi Xian was about to speak, but he found that he had already walked to the edge of the cliff. Under the cliff, clouds and mist lingered, making it unfathomable. Third young lady gently pointed with her finger. The clouds and mist below suddenly separated. The next moment, Yi Xian saw a behemoth. Dragon. To be precise, it was a dragon's head. This dragon's head was at the bottom of the abyss. Its body followed the abyss for an unknown length. The moment this dragon's head appeared, Yi Xian suddenly felt an oppressive pressure. Dragon's might. He had never felt such a strong dragon's might. Compared to this pressure, the winged dragon in Xian City was simply child's play. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Ancestral dragon." Third young lady nodded, "Only the ancestral dragon's blood can improve your current Dao body." Yi Xian looked at third young lady, "This dragon has fallen?" Third young lady nodded. Yi Xian was a little curious, "How did it fall?" Third young lady said with a smile, "I don't know either." Yi Xian was speechless. Third young lady looked at the ancestral dragon below. "At that time, I was still young. I only know that after Master brought it back, it fell not long after. As for the reason, Master never said. After this dragon fell, Master guarded it for 3 months. 3 months later, he left, and after that, there was no news of him." Saying that, she shook her head, "Young Master Yi, my Dao faction has no intention of becoming enemies with you. My Dao faction can't afford to offend you. Now that I am in charge of the Dao faction, I want to settle the grudge between us with young Master Yi." Yi Xian said softly, "Third young lady, aren't you afraid that I will summon the great Dao spirit and threaten your position?" Third young lady chuckled, "If that's the case, I can't wait to be happy." Yi Xian was a little curious, "Why?" Third young lady looked at Yi Xian, "If you really get the recognition of the great Dao spirit, it means that you are the person appointed by Master, and you will also be a part of my Dao faction. With a genius like you joining, I naturally should be happy. As for the Dao faction's master, to put it bluntly, what's the use of that position? Second senior brother spent a lot of effort to fight for the position. As long as I want to, I can take it back at any time." Saying that, she shook her head, "Second senior brother doesn't understand the principle that strength is the king. Whatever position, it's all empty." Yi Xian looked at third young lady, "If I really get the recognition of the great Dao spirit, are you really willing to let me be the Dao faction's master?" Third young lady nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian said, "Without the recognition of the great Dao spirit?" Third young lady smiled, "No." Yi Xian was a little puzzled, "Why?" Third young lady smiled slightly, "If you have the recognition of the great Dao spirit, it means that you have obtained Master's recognition. Since you have obtained Master's recognition, Dao faction should naturally share honor and disgrace with you, live and die together. However, if you don't get the recognition of the great Dao spirit, it means that you have not obtained Master's recognition. In this case, I naturally can't use the entire Dao faction's future to help you. Moreover, you can't take the initiative to join Dao faction, right?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "I see. The Dao faction's ancestors' opinion is the most important." Third young lady nodded, "Just like second senior brother, although I also want to kill him, he is Master's disciple after all. Even if I don't give face to a monk, I still have to give face to Buddha, so I can't be too ruthless. However, young Master Yi can rest assured that from now on, he will not appear in front of young Master Yi again. This, I can guarantee." Yi Xian looked at the ancestor dragon below and was silent. In fact, he was very clear that the reason why third young lady was so humble was not because of Yi Xian, but because she was afraid of the person behind him. Moreover, she did not want to be used by others. Third young lady looked down and was also silent. She wanted to resolve the grievances between the five-dimensional universe and Dao faction because Dao faction really had no reason to fight with Yi Xian. Moreover, Yi Xian being able to gather all 9 Dao scriptures was very abnormal. In her opinion, it was very likely that Yi Xian was the person chosen by her master. However, she was not sure because the great Dao spirit had run away. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Third young lady, let's talk about Life Fist." Third young lady glanced at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Let's talk about Dao body first. Young Master Ye's Dao body cultivation is indeed very good, but his realm is a bit low. For young Master Yi, the Dao body of achieved Dao realm should be somewhat insufficient. As she said this, she looked down and said, young Master Ye's bloodline is overbearing. It is enough to absorb the ancestor dragon's blood, so it should not be a big problem for him to improve. Also, this ancestor dragon's scale armor is extremely hard. I can give young Master Yi a few pieces and let young Master Yi forge them into treasured armor. This way, except for some mysterious experts, it should be impossible for ordinary people to kill young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at third young lady, mysterious experts. Third young lady nodded, for example, the white-robed woman behind young Master Yi. Yi Xian said with a smile, why don't you use a different analogy? Third young lady smiled slightly, it can't be helped. I'm weak and can't afford to offend others. Please forgive me, young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled, then looked down and narrowed his eyes. Who was it that made third young lady so afraid? Who was it that wanted to mess with him? At this moment, third young lady suddenly said, young Master Yi, let's go down. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and nodded, okay. Soon, the two of them walked towards the bottom of the abyss. Somewhere in the starry sky, a little girl walked slowly. The little girl held a skewer of tanghulu in her left hand and a grilled fish in her right. This little girl was Nian Nian. After walking for an unknown period of time, the starry sky in front of Nian Nian suddenly shook violently and a voice came from it, the three-dimensional universe does not welcome outsiders. Leave immediately. Nian Nian looked at the space in front of her, Yi Xian. After a moment of silence, that expanse of space suddenly split open, and then a woman walked out from within. The woman was dressed in a white dress and held a halberd in her hand. Her expression was indifferent. Chapter 1473. Seeing this woman, Nian Nian's eyes flashed with surprise. This woman is so strong. This was her first impression. The woman looked at Nian Nian, Yi Xian. Nian Nian nodded. The woman asked, who are you? Nian Nian smiled, let me tell you slowly. On the other side, ultimate martial realm. On a certain mountain peak, Wu Li suddenly opened his eyes. Not far in front of him, stood a woman. It was the mysterious woman from the sacred land. Wu Li looked at the mysterious woman, you want me to kill Yi Xian? The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled, no. You can't kill him. Wu Li frowned, the person behind him. The mysterious woman nodded and smiled, do you see the woman who stood with me that day? Wu Li was silent. The mysterious woman said, that's the fifth dimension Tendo. Wu Li said, I know. The mysterious woman smiled, the reason why you agreed to Yi Xian's 1-year appointment is mainly because of her. Because you know, with her around, you can't kill Yi Xian, right? Wu Li looked at the mysterious woman, what are you trying to do? The mysterious woman smiled, how confident do you think you are after 1 year? Wu Li was silent. How confident? In fact, he really wasn't confident. His current realm was crushing Yi Xian, but Yi Xian's combat power wasn't weak at all. Moreover, Yi Xian's growth speed was too fast. 1 year later, was he really confident? At this moment, the mysterious woman suddenly smiled, do you want to know what realm is above the God realm? Wu Li's pupils suddenly shrank, he looked at the mysterious woman, who are you? The mysterious woman smiled, I can't answer this question. Wu Li said in a deep voice, sir, with your strength, if you want to kill Yi Xian, it should be a piece of cake. Why do you want me to do it? The mysterious woman shook her head, not yet. Wu Li frowned. Why? The mysterious woman smiled and said, because that woman is still quite close to here. I need her to speed up, or rather, I need his disaster cause to speed up. Because there are too many people helping him now, his disaster cause's progress is a bit slow. Wu Li stared at the mysterious woman. You don't dare to kill him openly. The mysterious woman smiled and said, that's not something you should worry about. This time, I came to ask you a question. Are you willing to let go of Jia Lu of the Jialong tribe? If you are willing to let go of this hatred, I will never come looking for you again. If you're not willing, we can work together. Wu Li was silent. The mysterious woman smiled. It seems that you are unwilling to let go of your hatred. As she spoke, she tapped with her finger, and an ancient scroll appeared before Wu Li. This scroll can allow you to advance a step further. With that, she turned around and left. Wu Li remained silent on the spot. A moment later, he opened the ancient book, and his expression gradually turned solemn. In the end, the solemn look in his eyes gradually turned into excitement. In the horizon, the mysterious woman walked towards the distance, and behind her was the sacred master. The sacred master hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Master, you want to nurture this Wu Li and let him fight against Yi Xian?" The mysterious woman shook her head and smiled. "I'm not interested in him, but the ultimate martial realm." Ultimate martial realm. The sacred master was silent. To the entire ultimate martial realm, even the sacred master didn't know much. Even the sacred master didn't know much about it. He only knew that the ultimate martial realm had produced 6 martial emperors. After the Dao sect's ancestor disappeared, the ultimate martial realm instantly became the #1 power, but the sacred master didn't know anything about the situation inside the ultimate martial realm. The ultimate martial realm wasn't open to the outside world, and outsiders couldn't enter at all. This place was actually very mysterious. The mysterious woman turned around and glanced in the direction of the ultimate martial realm, and said with a smile, "This place isn't simple." With that, she withdrew her gaze. "Let's go meet some old fellows." As she spoke, she walked towards the distance. Before long, the two of them disappeared into the distant horizon. Dao sect. Yi Xian and the third young lady arrived at the bottom of the abyss. Needless to say, Yi Xian was shocked by the abyss. To be more precise, he was shocked by the ancestral dragon. The abyss was truly bottomless, and they still hadn't reached the bottom after descending for almost 150 kilometers. Yi Xian still didn't know exactly how big the ancestral dragon was, because when he looked down from his position, the abyss was at least tens of thousands of km long. Right at this moment, the third young lady suddenly stopped, and then she looked at the ancestral dragon and bowed slightly. "Sorry for the offense." As she spoke, she pressed her fingers together and lightly swiped, and then a part of the ancestral dragon that didn't have scales split open and blood sprayed out. The third young lady gestured with her right hand, and all the blood fell into a white gourd in her hand. The ancestral dragon's blood. Yi Xian was slightly excited as he looked at the white gourd. He could sense how formidable the ancestral dragon's blood was, and it could be said that the Dark City's winged dragon couldn't compare to this enormous dragon at all. Meanwhile, the third young lady suddenly put away the gourd, and then she passed it to Yi Xian. "Let's begin." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he asked, "Is this enough?" The third young lady smiled. "If it's not enough, then we can take more. In any case, it's convenient." Yi Xian nodded, and then he took the gourd. He opened it, and a wave of heat assaulted his face. The ancestral dragon's blood was red like lava. Yi Xian looked at the third young lady. "Are we going to swallow it just like that?" The third young lady nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he asked, "Will it be dangerous?" The third young lady sized up Yi Xian and said, "Your body should be able to endure it." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he nodded. "All right." As he spoke, he directly drank the ancestral dragon's blood. Bang! As soon as the blood entered his body, Yi Xian's clothes were instantly transformed into ash. At the same time, his entire body actually started burning. The third young lady sized up Yi Xian's body, and then she said, "Use the energy of your bloodline to suppress it." Yi Xian hurriedly activated the energy of his bloodline. As soon as he did, the energy of the ancestral dragon's blood was instantly suppressed. Yi Xian instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he witnessed this scene. If the energy of his bloodline wasn't able to suppress the ancestral dragon's blood, then he might be finished. Because he felt like his body was on the verge of being incinerated when the ancestral dragon's blood entered his body. The ancestral dragon's blood was too domineering. Even his Tao physique was unable to endure it. Fortunately, the energy of his bloodline was able to suppress the ancestral dragon's blood. Otherwise, his current Tao physique would really not dare to absorb the ancestral dragon's blood. Suddenly, the third young lady said, "Start absorbing the ancestral dragon's blood." Yi Xian nodded. He sat cross-legged on the ground and started to absorb the ancestral dragon's blood. The third young lady ceaselessly sized Yi Xian up, and it didn't take long for her gaze to descend onto a certain spot on Yi Xian's body. She shook her head. "Isn't that part of yours too ugly? What's the use of it?" Yi Xian was speechless. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to feel that the ancestral dragon's blood within his body had been completely absorbed. However, his body still hadn't changed at all. Yi Xian opened his eyes and gazed at the third young lady. The latter fell silent for a moment before she went to get another gourd of ancestral dragon's blood and passed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't hold back, and he picked up the gourd and gulped it down. As soon as the gourd of ancestral dragon's blood entered his body, the formidable energy of dragon blood started to spread throughout Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian hurriedly utilized the energy of his bloodline to suppress it. About an hour later, Yi Xian opened his eyes again and gazed at the third young lady. The ancestral dragon's blood had been completely absorbed by him again. However, his body still hadn't changed much. The third young lady frowned. "How can you eat so much?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I don't know either." As he spoke, he glanced at the huge ancestral dragon not far away. Then, "Third young lady, can you let me absorb more? Look at this dragon, it's huge." The third young lady glared at Yi Xian. "This dragon's blood is very precious." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I know, but I don't think it's of much use for you to let me absorb so little. Look at me, my body hasn't changed at all." The third young lady thought for a moment and said, "Just you wait." As she spoke, she turned and left. After the third young lady left, Yi Xian's gaze fell on the ancestral dragon, and his eyes lit up. This ancestral dragon's entire body was a treasure. Moreover, it was a priceless treasure. At this moment, the third young lady took out a large wooden bucket filled with dragon's blood. The third young lady looked at Yi Xian. "Drink it." Yi Xian blinked his eyes. "So much?" The third young lady said plainly, "I want to see how much you can absorb." Yi Xian smiled. He directly picked up the wooden bucket and drank it. As the dragon's blood entered Yi Xian's body gradually started to become red-hot like iron. There was finally a change. The third young lady heaved a sigh of relief. After all, the ancestral dragon's blood was very precious. One must know that there was only one ancestral dragon. Its blood would decrease every time it was used, and it couldn't be regenerated. Under such circumstances, its blood was even more precious. Not to mention Yi Xian, even the internal members of Taoism would find it difficult to obtain the ancestral dragon's blood. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly emanated from Yi Xian's body. At the same time, his body directly burned. Yi Xian was shocked. He hurriedly activated the power of the bloodline in his body to suppress it. The third young lady suddenly said, "Don't just suppress it. Remember to absorb it. Also, circulate the Tao scripture's mental cultivation method. Let that mental cultivation method assist your bloodline power." Yi Xian nodded and hurriedly circulated the Tao scripture's mental cultivation method. Just like that, the ancestral dragon's blood in his body gradually calmed down and was absorbed by his body bit by bit. His body was also slowly changing. The third young lady just looked at Yi Xian. No one knew what she was thinking. Three-dimensional universe. The woman in the white dress and Nian Nian walked slowly. After a long time, Nian Nian turned to look at the woman in the white dress. "This is it." The woman in the white dress was silent for a moment. She slowly closed her eyes. "I know who that woman is." Nian Nian was a little curious. "Who?" The woman in the white dress opened her eyes and whispered, "If it's really her, then he's in danger." P.S. Many readers must have a lot of votes in their hands, but I don't dare to ask for it because I'm afraid of being scolded. Chapter 1474. Danger. Upon hearing the white-dressed woman's words, Nian Nian pulled out the tanghulu in her mouth and said, "I've been targeted by the cause of misfortune and can't make a move. If I make a move, it will be exactly what that woman wants." So, at this point, she looked at the white-dressed woman. "I'm here to look for you." The white-dressed woman fell silent. Nian Nian asked, "It's not convenient to make a move?" The white-dressed woman nodded. "It's not convenient. However, since it's her, I have to make a trip no matter what." Nian Nian nodded. "Thank you." After saying that, she glanced at the three-dimensional universe below. "No one is allowed to enter this place?" The white-dressed woman nodded. "Especially someone as powerful as you?" Nian Nian asked with a smile, "Why?" The white-dressed woman said, "To protect this universe." "Protect?" Nian Nian nodded. "Understood." The white-dressed woman looked at Nian Nian. "Go back first. I will appear when it's time." Nian Nian smiled. "All right." After saying that, she turned around and left. On the spot, the woman was silent for a moment before shaking her head. Doomed fate. After saying that, she turned around and left. Nian Nian did not return to the fifth dimension directly. Instead, she went to the nether hall in the fourth dimension. The hall was very quiet. Just as Nian Nian walked into the hall, a voice sounded from within. "He caused trouble again?" Nian Nian smiled. "Sort of." The voice said, "Can't solve it?" Nian Nian shook her head. "I've already been targeted by the cause of misfortune. Once I make a move, the price will be too great." The voice said softly, "Perhaps, he should be allowed to walk his own path." Nian Nian smiled. "I want to too." However, a mysterious woman has appeared. That woman is not someone he can contend against now. The voice said, "What kind of woman?" Nian Nian described. A moment later, the voice said softly, "So it's her." Nian Nian smiled. "It seems that you all know her." The voice said, "I know her, and we used to be a little familiar." Nian Nian blinked. "Is it really as she said?" "She's very close to Yi Xian." The voice said, "Very close, very close." Nian Nian frowned. "Then why did she do that?" The voice sighed. "It's complicated." Nian Nian smiled. "So it's an old acquaintance of yours. What should we do?" The voice was silent. Nian Nian licked the candied fruit and said, "She wants to use the cause of disaster to kill him now, but I know that she definitely has a detailed plan. Once this plan succeeds, his life will really be in danger." The voice said, "In terms of strength, besides the 3 swords, no one can kill her. In terms of intelligence, only Peony could compare to her. Should he look for Miss Ding? She might have a better idea. As for us, to tell you the truth, we've also encountered some problems, and it's difficult for us to leave." Nian Nian suddenly smiled and said, "There's no need. Since you're in a difficult position, let me do it." With that, she turned around and left. The voice said, "Young miss, be careful of her. Since she's only acting against Yi Xian now, then there's definitely a reason. Moreover, she definitely has a perfect plan once she makes a move." Nian Nian nodded. "I know." The voice continued, "Don't let Tian Ming interfere in this matter." Nian Nian was a little curious. "Why?" After a moment of silence, the voice said, "Letting heavens will interfere will make things more complicated. It can cause internal strife here. Because apart from her brother, Tian Ming doesn't recognize anyone and dares to kill anyone. If it weren't for the green-robed man, she would have even killed Yi Xian's mother. She would even kill us. She's unreasonable. Once she's angered, it'll be a disaster for the entire world." And if she destroys the world again, then the cause of disaster on Yi Xian will really be unsolvable. Nian Nian said softly, is the cause of his disaster because of the plain-dressed woman and his father? The voice said, half of the reason is because of them. The two of them are untainted by all kinds of karma, but it doesn't mean that their closest relatives can do the same. It can be said that Yi Xian is now taking the blame for them. And it's precisely because of this that Tianming doesn't dare to kill anymore. Otherwise, before she leaves, she would probably kill everyone who can threaten her. As she said that, she paused and said, actually, her temper has changed a lot now. It's all because of him. Nian Nian was silent. In fact, she had guessed a long time ago that part of the cause of Yi Xian's disaster was because of the plain-dressed woman and the green-robed man. It was because these two closest relatives of Yi Xian were not good people. After a moment, Nian Nian suddenly said, I understand. After saying that, she turned and left. The voice said, I will find a way to contact Miss Ding and see if she has a way to resolve this feud. Also, Miss Nian, you must be careful when fighting with this woman. She may be more difficult to deal with than you think. Nian Nian smiled and said, I understand. After saying that, she disappeared at the end of the horizon. In the hall, a sigh sounded. Dao sect. At the bottom of the abyss, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. At that moment, a faint flame was emitting from his body. That was the dragon flame emitted by the ancestral dragon's blood. After drinking a full bottle of ancestral dragon's blood, his body finally changed. Most importantly, he had the third young lady's guidance. He realized that the third young lady's understanding of the Tao body far exceeded his. At the side, the third young lady glanced at him and then turned and left. Now, Yi Xian had entered the final stage, and it would not be long before he could break through. She still felt a little pain because Yi Xian had absorbed too much ancestral dragon's blood. Every bit he absorbed meant a little less. The third young lady left the abyss and came to the Tao prison. The Tao prison. This was the place where the Tao sect specially imprisoned disciples who had made mistakes. The third young lady came in front of the Tao sect's second brother, whose soul was currently locked by a flame. Seeing the third young lady, the Tao sect's second brother slowly closed his eyes. Are you here to laugh at me? The third young lady shook her head. Second senior brother, it seems that you haven't calmed down yet. After saying that, she turned and left. At that moment, the Tao sect's second brother suddenly said, What are you afraid of? The third young lady turned to look at the Tao sect's second brother and said with a smile, Do you really think that the immortal realm is invincible? The Tao sect's second brother looked at the third young lady. I can kill Yi Xian. The third young lady smiled slightly. Under normal circumstances, I can kill him, but what about after I kill him? Can the Tao sect withstand the revenge of the forces behind him? I know that we can. In our hearts, the Tao sect has always been invincible. The Tao sect's second brother was silent. The third young lady continued, Have you ever thought about why we want to kill him? Just because he has the 9 scrolls of the Tao scripture? But did he forget what his master said? The Tao scripture is not the Tao scripture of the Tao sect, but the Tao scripture of the world. Anyone can learn his martial arts. What is his greatest wish? It is to exile the martial arts civilization in the Tao scripture for all ages so that everyone can learn it. But what about you? As soon as he left, you took the Tao scripture and everything about the Tao sect for yourself. Why doesn't the spirit of the great path admit it? You? It's very simple. Because your actions have already violated Master's original intentions. The Tao sect's second brother's face was gloomy and he did not speak. The third young lady continued, Even now, this Yi Xian still thinks that the Tao sect can kill him. Do you know? If the Tao sect really touches him, the Tao sect will be doomed eternally. The Tao sect's second brother said in a deep voice, What force is behind him? The third young lady shook her head, I don't know. I only know that it is definitely not a force that the Tao sect can afford to offend. Then, she looked at the Tao sect's second brother, second senior brother, Do you know why you can't reach the immortal state? The Dao Sec's second brother looked at the third young lady, and the third young lady said softly, because you care too much about the Dao scripture. Not only do you care about the Dao scripture, but you also care about power. You have taken the wrong path. After saying that, she turned around and left. When she reached the door, she stopped again, imprisoned for 100 years. If you can wake up within 100 years, you can reach the immortal state. If you can't and still live in hatred, then die. As she spoke, she had already disappeared. In the Dao prison, the Dao Sec's second brother was silent. After the third young lady left the Dao prison, she looked up at the sky. At this moment, a shadow appeared behind her. The shadow bowed slightly. Third young lady. The third young lady said softly, have you found out where she came from? The shadow said in a deep voice, I only know that she is from the holy ground, but I can't find out her identity. The holy ground. The third young lady slowly closed her eyes. That woman wants to use the Dao sect as a tool. The shadow said in a deep voice, third young lady, do you want revenge? The third young lady shook her head, we are no match for her. The shadow hesitated for a moment, then said, is she that strong? The third young lady said softly, she is stronger than we thought. However, we can't let this matter go just like that. Doesn't she want to kill Yi Xian? Then let's help Yi Xian and make Yi Xian stronger. Let's give her some trouble. After saying that, she turned around and left. At the bottom of the abyss, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with flames. At this moment, the third young lady appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian, congratulations. Yi Xian stood up, clenched his fists, and the surrounding space directly shattered. Power. At this moment, Yi Xian felt endless power. The power of the ancestral dragon's bloodline. Now, not only had his physical body reached the consolidation realm, but his power had also increased by at least 10 times. Most importantly, his physical body had reached the consolidation realm. Now, ordinary consolidation realm experts could not do anything to his physical body. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian looked at the third young lady. Third young lady, can I practice life fist now? The third young lady nodded, yes. However, the lethality of this move is too great. Using it once is equivalent to hurting the enemy by 1,000 and hurting yourself by 800, or even hurting the enemy by 1,000 and hurting yourself by 2,000. So, are you sure you want to learn it? Yi Xian smiled, learn it. The third young lady nodded, follow me. After saying that, she turned around and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, third young lady. The third young lady turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian hesitated, then said, didn't you say that you would give me the ancestral dragon scale? After saying that, he walked to the ancestral dragon's side, patted one of the thick scales, and said with a smile, I think this one is fine. If you don't mind, I will take it away. After saying that, he had already started to take it away. That was the ancestral dragon's reverse scale, the hardest part of the body. The third young lady was silent. Damn, how could this man be so shameless? Chapter 1475. Seeing that Yi Xian was really going to pull out the dragon scale, Third Miss hurriedly said, young Master Yi. Yi Xian turned to look at Third Miss and blinked. Third Miss, there's no need to help me. I can do it myself. With that, he exerted force and plucked out the dragon scale. Third Miss was speechless. Yi Xian looked at the dragon scale. It wasn't particularly big, but it was abnormally strong. It was at least 4 to 5 times stronger than the other dragon scales around it. Good stuff. If this thing was made into armor, it would be equivalent to a Dao body. Yi Xian was very satisfied. At this moment, Third Miss suddenly said in a deep voice, young Master Yi. Yi Xian looked at Third Miss and smiled. Third Miss, I won't take this dragon scale for free. Third Miss looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi wants to trade something with me? Yi Xian nodded. If Third Miss likes anything, as long as I have it, I can give it to you. Third Miss asked, really? Yi Xian nodded. He wasn't afraid. He was poorer than the Dao sex anyway. Third Miss said, I want some young Master Ye's blood. Yi Xian was stunned. My blood? Third Miss nodded. Not much. 1 gourd is enough. Yi Xian's face darkened. That's not much. 1 gourd. I'm not a dragon. If I let out a gourd of blood, I'm afraid I'll collapse. Third Miss said lightly, young Master Yi is unwilling? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, Third Miss, why do you want my blood? Third Miss smiled. I have my uses. Yi Xian was silent. Third Miss smiled. Young Master Yi is alive, but my ancestral dragon is dead. Young Master Ye's blood can be regenerated, but my ancestral dragon's blood can't be regenerated. Young Master Yi, Yi Xian suddenly said, Third Miss, 1 gourd of blood is too much. You're trying to drain me dry. Third Miss blinked. Then just half a gourd. This gourd is so small. Half a gourd of blood won't have much effect on young Master Yi. Yi Xian was speechless. He suddenly realized that the dragon scale was a bit hot. The third young lady walked up to Yi Xian and said with a smile, May I? Yi Xian did not speak. He took out a gourd and started to bleed. Soon, half of the gourd was filled with blood. Yi Xian. Third Miss, said, Yi Third Miss, Yi Xian said, Third Xian. Yi Xian looked at third young lady, Third young lady, what are you doing with my blood? The third young lady smiled and said, Don't worry, I won't use your blood recklessly. I just want to study it. Moreover, your blood might be helpful to my Taoist body. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. The third girl put away the gourd, young Master Yi, let's go practice life fist. With that, she turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the third young lady and followed her. On the way, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Third young lady, as far as I know, this Tao scripture martial art is the origin of all the martial arts in the myriad world. Then, what was this Tao scripture martial art before? Or could it be that before the Tao scriptures and martial arts, there wasn't any martial arts civilization? The third young lady remained silent. Yi Xian asked again, Can't you tell me? I still don't know. Tao? Third young lady said softly, Of course I know. Yi Xian smiled and said, Can you tell me about it? The third young lady glanced at Yi Xian and said, If you want to know about the civilization before the Tao scripture civilization, then you must first understand the history of our universe. Our universe, conservatively estimated, should have existed for hundreds of trillions of years. But the Tao scripture martial arts civilization is only 360,000 years old. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression became solemn. The third young lady said again, Compared to this universe, humans are really insignificant. We also know very little about the history of this universe. For example, how it was formed, how humans were born, we know nothing. Before the Tao scripture martial arts civilization, the martial arts civilization of this universe was very, very backward. The people of that era were still in the body refining stage and didn't know how to cultivate qi. The lifespan of humans was basically less than 100 years. Yi Xian frowned slightly, so backward? The third young lady nodded, very backward. But the spiritual qi in that era was very rich, at least 1,000 times richer than it is now. Because the people of that era didn't cultivate qi, spiritual qi was basically useless to them. Master called that era the primitive era. Whether it was the spiritual civilization or the martial arts civilization, they were the most primitive. After Master appeared, he created a new cultivation method, which was qi cultivation. Absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to strengthen oneself, change oneself, break through oneself. It was also from Master's era that people became more and more powerful, so powerful that they could destroy the world. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Did the ancestors of the Tao sects teach themselves? The third young lady nodded slightly, learn and explore by yourself. Yi Xian said softly, amazing. Creating a new path wasn't something an ordinary person could do. The third young lady said, after Master appeared, the cultivation method he created completely changed our universe. However, it also brought a disaster to this universe. Because everyone cultivated, they absorbed spiritual qi without restraint, and even plundered the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, so many worlds were destroyed. Saying that, she glanced at Yi Xian. The model in the five-dimensional universe is very good. It protects the world, protects the spirit of heaven and earth, and forbids the wanton destruction of the strong. In this case, the universe can live longer. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, third young lady, just now you said that the history of this universe is at least 100 trillion years, and the Tao scripture civilization only has a little more than 30 years. Before the Tao scripture civilization was the primitive era. What about before the primitive era? The third young lady shook her head, I don't know. Because the people of that era didn't even create words, so there was no record at all. However, Master once calculated that more than 10 million years before the primitive era, there might be an extremely powerful civilization in this universe. Yi Xian hurried to ask, what civilization? The third young lady hesitated, then shook her head, I don't know. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, why did the Tao sect's ancestor think that more than 10 million years before the primitive era, there was a powerful civilization in this world? The third young lady looked at Yi Xian. In order to spread martial Tao, Master once traveled all over the world. He once encountered something unusual in the northern wilderness, but I don't know what it was. I only know that after he came back from there, the ancestral dragon that had been accompanying him all along died. Later, Master personally sealed the northern wilderness, and no one was allowed to step into that place. These years, the seal has loosened, and I have entered several times, but I couldn't go deep. That place is indeed not simple. The northern wilderness. Yi Xian was silent, and he remembered this place in his heart. At this time, the third young lady stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. The Tao scripture martial Tao civilization is only the origin of our universe's martial Tao civilization, but it is not the only martial Tao civilization. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Third young lady, are you trying to tell me that there is a higher dimension world? The third young lady asked, why not? Yi Xian frowned slightly, don't tell me there is really an 8th or 9th dimension. The third young lady shook her head, do you think there is any difference between the 4th and 5th dimensions? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and shook his head, there is no difference, just that the martial Tao civilization of the 5th dimension is higher than that of the 4th dimension. Third young lady nodded. Actually, no matter if it's 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, or 5-dimensional, or even the Saha world, everyone is in the same universe. It's just that someone separated each place and set up a cosmic barrier. That's why there's the so-called 4-dimensional and 5-dimensional distinction. In the end, everyone belongs to the same universe. It's just that the area is different. Yi Xian suddenly asked, now, what is the farthest known place in Tao sect? The third young lady looked at Yi Xian, the Orc world. Yi Xian frowned slightly, the Orc world? The third young lady nodded, another race that has existed since primitive times. They are actually also humans, but they are a race that is a combination of humans and demons. They can be said to be the natural enemy of the human race. If it was not for Master's sudden appearance, the human race would have been destroyed by them. Yi Xian was a little surprised, so strong? The third young lady said softly, not just strong, they not only have the cultivation talent of the human race, but also the strong physical body of the Orc race, especially in the aspect of physical body. Compared to the human race, they have a unique advantage, and those Orcs who have cultivated their physical body to the extreme are even more terrifying. She looked at Yi Xian as she spoke. Master created the Taoist physique based on the cultivation method of their threads. Yi Xian said, in other words, the Orcs in the Orc world are more advanced than us humans in terms of physical body? The third young lady nodded, yes. Because their physical body has a unique advantage. Humans may need to cultivate for 20 to 30 years to cultivate a strong physical body, but on the Orc side, they may be born with it, Yi Xian said softly, I understand. At this moment, he finally had a rough understanding of this universe. The universe was very big. The martial arts civilization did not only consist of the Taoist scripture civilization. The Taoist scripture civilization was only the source of the martial arts civilization of this universe, but who knew if there were other universes? The third young lady said again, if young Master Yi wants to know more about the history of this universe, you can go to the northern wilderness, but that place is a bit dangerous, young Master Yi better not go now. Otherwise, you won't be able to return. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the third young lady stopped in her tracks. She glanced at her surroundings and said, young Master Yi, this is the place where I usually cultivate. The space here is unusually firm, so young Master Yi can cultivate Fate Fist here. However, I have to remind you that cultivating Fate Fist is playing with your life. Because you have to burn your lifespan in the beginning. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. I found that everyone has been guessing the identity of that woman recently. I also read the book comments, but no one guessed correctly. Chapter 1476. Burning one's lifespan. Yi Xian was speechless. This life fist was really risking one's life. Third Miss smiled and said, however, if you succeed in cultivating it, you will feel that burning your lifespan is worth it. However, in my opinion, young Master Ye's lifespan is at most 1,000 years, that's too little. I'm afraid it's not enough for young Master Yi to successfully cultivate this fist. So. Yi Xian suddenly said, let's try it first. Third Miss glanced at Yi Xian and nodded, then let's try it first. Saying that, she sat cross-legged on the ground and said, young Master Yi, sit down first. Let me tell you about the origin of this life fist and its special characteristics. Yi Xian nodded and sat cross-legged opposite to Third Mississippi. Third young lady said, this life fist was created by Master by chance. Originally, he didn't want to incorporate this fist into the martial arts scripture because this fist was too harmful to the harmony of the heavens and its power was too great. Ordinary people couldn't control it. However, after seeing me cultivate this fist, he changed his mind. Yi Xian blinked, why? Third Miss looked at Yi Xian, because I can control this life fist. Yi Xian was speechless. Third Miss continued, this life fist burns one's lifespan as the price. It can be said to be an unconventional sword, and because of this unconventional sword, the requirements for the cultivator are extremely harsh. First is the body, because its power is too powerful, ordinary people can't bear its power. If an ordinary person cultivates it, once they use it, they may directly explode and die. Therefore, the cultivator must at least have a Dao body of the consolidation realm. Only a Dao body of the consolidation realm can bear its power. Second is the soul. In the process of cultivating this fist, the cultivator will have to endure unbearable pain. The soul must be strong enough, otherwise, the soul may be destroyed while cultivating. Yi Xian blinked, the soul will be destroyed? The third young lady nodded. This fist intent surpasses the limits of ordinary people. Moreover, the power obtained from this fist is unconventional. Therefore, there are many drawbacks. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. Your physical body is strong enough. As for your divine soul, it shouldn't be too big of a problem. The only problem is his lifespan. His lifespan is a little short, but his comprehension isn't bad, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Yi Xian nodded, then let's begin. Third young lady said, now, I will teach you some of my experience in practicing life fist. It should be helpful. With that, she pointed with her fingers, and a white light directly entered the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Soon, countless pieces of information flowed into his mind. About an hour later, Yi Xian began to circulate the 9th volume of Tao scripture and began to practice the life fist. The moment he activated the 9th manual, a faint flame suddenly appeared around him, burning his lifespan. Needless to say, the price of practicing life fist was too high. Burning his lifespan. What was the ultimate goal of ordinary people's cultivation? It was to prolong their lifespan. But this life fist directly burned one's lifespan. However, Yi Xian had no choice but to practice. His top priority now was to do everything possible to improve his strength. Without great strength, everything else was nonsense. The sacred ground. The sacred lord came to the bamboo house in the back of the mountain. In the garden, a woman was slowly watering the plants. The woman was still wearing that dark green dress. The sacred lord walked to the side of the garden and bowed respectfully. "Master, I received news. Yi Xian is practicing in the Tao sect and has now cultivated his physical body to the consolidation realm. Not only that, he is also practicing the Tao sect's supreme martial art, Life Fist." The woman nodded. "Got it." The sacred lord hesitated, then said, "Aren't we going to stop him?" The woman smiled. "Why should we stop him?" The sacred lord said in a deep voice, "He is getting stronger and stronger." The woman smiled. "I know." The sacred lord wanted to say something but stopped. The woman glanced at the sacred lord. "Even if his physical body and realm have reached the god realm, he is not a threat to me. Do you understand?" The sacred lord shook his head. "No." The woman smiled. "Whether he lives or not doesn't depend on him. Whether I die or not doesn't depend on him. This is a game between me and the person behind him." The sacred lord said softly, "The woman in the plain dress?" The woman nodded. "The only people who can kill me and dare to kill me are this woman and her father. It can be said that I only have one chance. If I can't kill him in one strike, I won't have a second chance. Now, the only thing that can hold them back is the calamity cause. Her father is far enough away from here. If I make a move, he will not be able to help. Of course, the woman in the plain dress is not near here either. However, if I make a move and kill him, I will die too. A life for a life, that was my idea in the past. Now, I don't want a life for a life because I think it will be too easy for him. So, I want a life for a few more." The sacred lord glanced at the woman, his eyes filled with fear. He knew that the master before him might be doing something crazy. The woman suddenly stopped and sighed softly. "There's nothing I can do. As long as I want to kill him, no matter what I do, I will definitely die in the end. However, it doesn't matter." The sacred lord said in a low voice, "Master, is there no chance of survival?" The woman shook her head. "There is no chance of survival." The sacred lord hesitated for a moment and said, "Then why not give up?" The woman smiled. "There are some things that must be done, even if it means death." As she spoke, she glanced at the sacred lord. "Don't worry too much. I will give you a way out later. Once Yi Xian dies, the woman in the plain dress will definitely go mad, and the entire universe will tremble under her sword. Moreover, no one can stop her, not even those two men, because they can't stop a mandate of heaven that has lost its mind. However, there is a place that she will not make a move, and that is the place where her brother died. Only by going there can she survive." The sacred lord said in a trembling voice, "Master, is that woman really invincible?" The woman nodded and smiled. "She is. If it wasn't for the disaster cause, I wouldn't have a chance at all. Even with the disaster cause, as long as I touch Yi Xian, I will definitely die. However, I am prepared to die." The sacred lord still wanted to say something, but the woman waved her hand. "You may leave." The sacred lord did not dare to say anything else. He bowed respectfully and left. The woman put down the tools in her hand and walked slowly into the bamboo house. There was only a bed, a bamboo table, and a bamboo chair in the bamboo house. The woman walked to the bamboo table and sat down. She picked up the teapot and poured herself a cup of tea. However, she did not drink it and fell silent. After a long time, the woman raised the teacup and said softly, "I don't blame him. However, he must die." After saying that, she picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. Then, she stood up and left the bamboo house. After walking out of the bamboo house, she gently drew a line with her finger and the space in front of her split open. In the next moment, she entered the split space. The desolate north. Very few people knew about the northern wilderness because it was a true forbidden area. Even godly state experts did not dare to step into this place easily. There were two reasons why this place was called a forbidden area. First, this place itself was extremely special. Second, there was a restriction set up by the Tao sect's patriarch. Over the years, countless people had entered this place in search of opportunities. However, only a few could come out alive. Even if they did, it was because they did not go deep. On this day, a woman came to the northern wilderness. It was the mysterious woman from the sacred ground. The mysterious woman slowly walked toward the northern wilderness. When she walked to a river, an invisible force suddenly blocked her way. The mysterious woman waved her lily-white hand and the invisible force instantly disappeared without a trace. The mysterious woman continued to move forward. Not long after, a mysterious force suddenly enveloped her body. The mysterious woman smiled slightly. The Great Path Law, as she spoke, she waved her right hand and the mysterious force instantly disappeared without a trace. The mysterious woman continued to move forward. Soon, she arrived in front of a tall building with 12 floors. The woman raised her head and looked at the tall building. In the middle of the building, there were 3 big black words, White Jade Jing. The woman walked toward the entrance. When she approached the White Jade Jing, a mysterious force suddenly blocked her way. At the same time, a shadow appeared in front of the mysterious woman. The shadow looked at the woman. Trespasser, die. The woman suddenly grabbed with her right hand. The next moment, the shadow's throat was directly grabbed by the woman. He did not even have the strength to fight back. The woman looked at the shadow and smiled. I'm not one of those nobodies. As she spoke, she clenched her fist. Boom! That illusory figure turned into nothingness. At that moment, the White Jade Jing suddenly trembled. The mysterious woman smiled slightly and gently stomped her right foot. Boom! The entire White Jade Jing shook violently and cracks appeared everywhere. At the same time, the White Jade Jing calmed down. The mysterious woman looked at the White Jade Jing and shook her head with a smile. Is this the prehistoric civilization? As soon as she spoke, she turned around and left. At that moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the top floor of the White Jade Jing. Who is it? The mysterious woman stopped in her tracks. The next moment, she turned around and punched. Boom! The White Jade Jing suddenly crumbled and turned into fragments that scattered all over the sky. The moment the White Jade Jing was destroyed, countless souls floated out of it. The mysterious woman waved her right hand and collected the souls. At that moment, a ferocious voice suddenly sounded from the sky. Who is it? Why don't you dare show your true face? From his perspective, he could only see a blurry figure. He could not see the mysterious woman's true face. The mysterious woman looked up at the sky and smiled. These souls are very useful to my nephew, Yi Xian, so I'm taking them with me. It's an honor for prehistoric people like you to be absorbed by my nephew. As soon as she spoke, she turned around and left. In the sky, the ferocious voice sounded. Yi Xian, the mysterious woman did not leave. Instead, she continued to go deeper. Along the way, she was unscrupulous and killed everything she passed. However, she did not kill all of them. Instead, she would say, my nephew, Yi Xian. Chapter 1477. Following the mysterious woman's crazy massacre, the entire northern wilderness wailed. But soon, the mysterious woman escaped. Because she seemed to be injured. This made the mysterious forces in the northern wilderness heave a sigh of relief. This woman did not seem to be invincible. However, they still could not do anything to her and could only watch her escape. Following the mysterious woman's escape, the entire northern wilderness returned to peace. But not long after, the northern wilderness became lively again as if they were discussing something. It was worth mentioning that not only did the mysterious woman forcibly take away some of the sleeping souls here, but she also took away countless mysterious treasures. They were all the family properties of those forces. This was simply robbery. A blatant robbery. For a moment, the northern wilderness was filled with anger and murderous intent. Dao sect. In the cultivation place, Yi Xian stood quietly with a faint flame burning around him. Burning his lifespan. He was now burning his lifespan to obtain great power. After burning his lifespan, he found that he had indeed obtained a mysterious and powerful power. The power of lifespan. This power was not cultivated, but burned. One had to admit that this was indeed an unconventional move. However, this power was really strong. Yi Xian slowly clenched his right hand and the space within tens of thousands of feet around him became illusory. The power in his right hand was still becoming stronger as he burned his lifespan. The third young lady watched quietly in front of Yi Xian. She was actually very curious about Yi Xian because even if the Dao sect tried their best, they could not find out Yi Xian's true identity. In this universe, there were really not many people that the Dao sect could not find out. Most importantly, this guy seemed to have a huge force behind him and the Dao sect knew nothing about this huge force. Too mysterious. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. The clothes on his right arm instantly turned into ashes. Blue veins bulged on his entire right arm, and it was filled with an extremely violent power. The power of lifespan. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Third young lady, I feel that I can't control this power anymore." Third young lady looked at Yi Xian. "You must learn to control it." Yi Xian quickly asked, "How do I control it?" Third lady said, "Don't burn your lifespan yet." Yi Xian nodded and quickly stopped burning his lifespan. Although he had stopped burning his lifespan, the power in his body was still somewhat difficult to control. He even felt like his body was about to explode. Because he was too strong. Moreover, he felt as if his body was about to collapse. Not only was his physical body on the verge of collapse, but his soul was also on the verge of collapse. At this time, the third young lady suddenly said, "Although this power is strong, you must know that it is yours. It was obtained by burning your lifespan, and your lifespan is also yours, so you can try to communicate with it." Yi Xian blinked. "Communicate?" The third young lady nodded. "Feel it, fuse with it, and make it a part of your body. Only then will you be able to control it completely." With that, she paused and continued, "The reason why many people in Taoism cannot cultivate this life fist is because they have not found a suitable way to control it." Yi Xian nodded. "I will try." With that, he slowly closed his eyes and calmed his mind. Feel that power. Gradually, Yi Xian found that although this power was violent and overbearing, it was a little dependent on his body. No, it should be said that it was a little close to his body. Any power without the support of the body would be like a duckweed without roots. And this power was created by him, so naturally it was most dependent on him. As long as he used the right method, he could easily control this power. Yi Xian began to try to fuse with this power. At first, it was a little difficult, but slowly, he found that this power was not so resistant to him. Feeling this, Yi Xian was delighted. There's hope. About 3 days later, Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly stood up. He clenched his right hand, and in an instant, the surrounding space became transparent. On top of his fist, there was a faint blood-red flame. Life fist. Yi Xian looked at his fist, his eyes full of excitement. At this moment, he felt boundless power. At this time, the third young lady suddenly smiled. "Are you satisfied?" Yi Xian looked at the third young lady. The third young lady smiled and said, "Your life fist is just a beginner, and its power is not even 1/10 of the real life fist. Not only that, when you burned your lifespan, you only burned 50 years. If you burn for a few hundred years, you will find out what power is." Yi Xian was a little curious. "What if I burn for 1,000 years?" The third young lady smiled and said, "Your current body can't take it. With your current body, you can at most burn 200 years of lifespan, and 200 years of lifespan is enough for you to obtain power far beyond your realm. Yi Xian was a little curious. How powerful is it exactly? He wanted to try, but the price was too high. 200 years of lifespan was not enough to try. He couldn't afford to try. The third young lady thought for a moment and said, if you burn 200 years of lifespan, your power should be able to kill a God state expert easily. Very, very easily. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, what is above the God state? The third young lady smiled and said, that's not for you to worry about. What you should worry about now is the problem of lifespan. You have to know that you have less than 800 years of lifespan left. Don't think it's a lot. If you use Life Fist a few more times, it will be gone. Moreover, your body and soul are not particularly strong. If you use it a few more times, not only will your lifespan not be able to bear it, even your soul and body will not be able to bear it. So, you need to find a way to improve your body and soul again. Yi Xian looked at the third young lady and the third young lady quickly said, don't look at me. Your divine soul and physical body have already reached your limits. It will be extremely difficult for you to improve any further. I can't help you. Yi Xian was a little curious. Third young lady, what is your body realm? The third young lady said, God state. Yi Xian quickly asked, how did you reach God state? The third young lady looked at Yi Xian and raised a finger, I spent 100 years to reach God state, 100 years. Yi Xian was petrified on the spot. The third young lady smiled and said, you can also reach God state if you take your time. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, I also want to, but I'm afraid my enemy will not give me 100 years. The third young lady spread her hands, then I can't help you. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian cupped his fists, no matter what, third young lady, thank you. The third young lady nodded, are you going back now? Yi Xian nodded, there are still some things waiting for me to deal with in the fifth dimension, I have to go back and see if I can improve my soul and body. The third young lady nodded slightly, your soul may be able to improve, but your body will not be able to improve in a short period of time. Unless you have a fortuitous encounter, but it is also very difficult. Yi Xian nodded slightly, his body had just broken through to consolidation realm, and if he wanted to break through again, as the third young lady said, without a special fortuitous encounter, it would be basically impossible. In this world, there was basically no beast blood more powerful than the ancestral dragon blood. Even if there was, he was afraid he would not be able to defeat it. At this time, the third young lady suddenly said, I still have something to deal with, I will leave first. If you need anything, or if there is anything you do not understand, you can also come to my Dao sect. Yi Xian cupped his fists, thank you. The third young lady nodded slightly, turned around and left. Yi Xian suddenly said, third young lady. The third young lady turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled, you said I have a powerful enemy, can you tell me? The third young lady thought for a moment, then shook her head, young Master Yi, I am sorry, my Dao sect does not want to get involved in this mess anymore. Whether it is you or the other party, my Dao sect cannot afford to offend you, I just want my Dao sect to develop steadily. After saying that, she turned around and left. In the same place, Yi Xian was silent. Who is it that wants to mess with me behind the scenes? Without thinking much, Yi Xian turned around and left. Somewhere, the third young lady looked at Yi Xian's departing figure, whispering, I hope we will meet again. After saying that, she turned around and left, but after taking 2 steps, her eyes suddenly narrowed, her right hand suddenly clenched, and a powerful force condensed in her right hand. A laugh sounded from behind the third young lady, Miss, you can't beat me. The third young lady said softly, Your Excellency, can't you let my Dao sect go? The voice laughed, you know he is the person I want to kill, but you still want to help him. You want him to become stronger, and then cause trouble for me, right? The third young lady shook her head, I just want to settle the grudge between my Dao sect and him, that's all. The voice was silent. The third young lady slowly closed her eyes, and the force in her right hand became stronger and stronger. The atmosphere became more and more tense. At this moment, the voice suddenly laughed, "Forget it. Your master is a respectable person after all, so I won't be so ruthless in this matter. Miss, don't play such tricks in the future. Because you don't have a second chance, understand?" The third young lady nodded. "Boss is right. I will remember it." The voice laughed. "What a smart girl, you are much smarter than that Dao sect's second young master. Take care." After saying that, the third young lady in the distance suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. She turned around, but there was no one in front of her. The other party had left. The third young lady looked at the horizon and softly said, "Young Master Yi, I mourn for you." Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian was flying on his sword, returning to the fifth dimension. It had been a while since he came out. Although the threat of the Dao sect was gone, there were still many things in the fifth dimension that he needed to deal with. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him stood a woman. The woman wore a dark green dress, on which there were mountains and rivers, and she looked very quiet and elegant. Yi Xian's expression became solemn, because the other party appeared without a sound. The woman smiled. "Don't be nervous, I am a good person." Yi Xian looked at the woman. "That's what bad people usually say." The woman laughed. "You are right." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Who are you?" The woman thought for a while, then said, "You should call me Aunt." As she said that, the corner of her mouth slightly raised, the kissing kind. Yi Xian. P.S. I'm late. Let me tell you slowly. It was dusk, and I passed by a dark alley. In the alley, there were a few people in revealing clothes. These people waved at me. Out of curiosity, I walked over, and then. Chapter 1478. Auntie. Dear. Yi Xian was confused. The woman smiled. "It's normal that you don't know me. This is the first time we've met." Yi Xian looked at the woman. "Are you really my auntie?" The woman nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian asked. "How do you prove it?" The woman smiled. "I really don't know." Yi Xian looked at the woman in silence. The woman thought for a while. "But you can ask me some questions. I think I should be able to answer them." Yi Xian asked. "Who is Qing Er?" The woman smiled. "Her name is Tianming. She comes from the three-dimensional universe. Moreover, the current woman in a plain dress wasn't her true body. Of course, her current strength had already far surpassed her previous body. Besides her, there is also that woman in white. Her name is Tuesday. She used to be the owner of the executing heaven sword. She is also Qing Er, one of the 4 doppelgangers." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Where are the other 2? The woman said softly. "The other 2 were killed by Qing, a long time ago." Yi Xian frowned. "Why?" The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Because the 2 Qing Er obstructed her, so she killed them." Yi Xian was curious. "What obstructed Qing Er?" The woman smiled. "Because Qing Er wanted to defy the heavens and change her fate. But the prerequisite was to destroy the Tao. So she chose to destroy all living beings. The other 2 tried to stop her, so she killed them." Yi Xian was silent. The woman gently brushed her hair behind her ear. "What else do you want to ask?" Yi Xian looked at the woman. "Who is my father?" The woman smiled. "It's not convenient for me to tell you. You will know in the future." Yi Xian asked again. "What about my mother?" The woman smiled. "Mother is not an ordinary person, very extraordinary. In fact, there's another bloodline in my body, but it hasn't been activated yet." Yi Xian frowned. "There's another bloodline?" The woman nodded. "Yes. It was a very powerful bloodline. However, that ability had yet to be awakened. Moreover, the current crazy demon bloodline is too overbearing. It directly suppresses that bloodline, so it can't awaken. Yi Xian said solemnly, I have two bloodlines. The woman said with a smile, yes. Moreover, the other bloodline is also very strong. Of course, in terms of power, it can't compare to the crazy demon bloodline. However, the other bloodline is a little special. Its function is not to increase strength. Yi Xian was a little curious. Is that a support type? The woman nodded. You can say so. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, is it powerful? The woman smiled and said, definitely powerful. Yi Xian asked, how do I activate it? The woman blinked. Do you want to activate it? Yi Xian nodded. The woman smiled and said, I'll help. With that, she walked in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian's right hand slowly clenched, his heart secretly on guard. The woman shook her head and smiled, don't be on guard against me. If I want to kill, you can't stop me. Even if you burn 1,000 years of your lifespan to use that life fist, you're still not my opponent. Yi Xian looked straight at the woman, how do you know that I practice life fist? The woman smiled and said, because I've been secretly observing. Yi Xian asked, observing me for what? The woman blinked, as an ant, what's wrong with observing my nephew? Yi Xian was silent. The woman smiled and said, do you want to activate your bloodline? Yi Xian was still silent. The woman shook her head and smiled, it seems that you still don't believe me. In that case, you can use your life fist to hit me. Yi Xian looked at the woman, then I won't be polite. With that, he suddenly swung his sword. Instant kill sword. He had cultivated this instant kill sword to the limit. Even if he didn't use the supreme sword, its speed and power had reached the limit. Moreover, he was so close to this woman. Even if this woman was a peak god realm expert, she would absolutely not be able to block this sword. However, Yi Xian was stunned. Because his sword was clamped by two fingers. The woman's fingers. The woman clamped Yi Xian's sword and said with a smile, a very fast sword. Unfortunately, this speed is still not a threat to me. With that, she loosened her fingers. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that this woman's strength far exceeded his. Just like what she said, if she wanted to kill him, he couldn't resist at all. The woman smiled and said, now do you believe me? Yi Xian looked at the woman, why are you looking for me? The woman blinked her eyes, someone asked me to help you because you're too weak now. So weak, you won't be able to resist the calamity cause in the future. Yi Xian was stunned and then said, someone asked you to help me? The woman nodded, yes. Yi Xian asked, who is it? The woman smiled and said, someone I know very well. As for who it is, I won't tell you. In any case, I'm here to help. Yi Xian glanced at the woman, how? The woman sized up Yi Xian and said, first, I have to help you activate the power of your bloodline and activate the power of another bloodline. Secondly, your soul is slightly weak, so I can help you improve it and bring it to a new height. Yi Xian was slightly surprised, you can help me improve my soul? The woman nodded, yes. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and asked, really? The woman smiled and said, what's in it for me to lie to you? Yi Xian fell silent. He didn't know if this woman was his aunt, but an expert like her wouldn't joke with him, right? Moreover, she knew Qing, and the others so well, so she was obviously from the three-dimensional universe. The woman suddenly said, I'll activate your bloodline first. Of course, if you really don't believe me, then you don't have to activate it. I'm busy anyway. Yi Xian looked at the woman, will the two bloodlines conflict with each other if I activate the other bloodline? The woman smiled and said, conflict or not, it depends on you. Yi Xian frowned slightly, depends on me? The woman nodded, remember, whether it's the crazy demon bloodline or the other bloodline, it's their master, not the other way around. Understand? Yi Xian said solemnly, I understand. The woman smiled and said, "Can we start now?" Yi Xian hesitated and said, "Are you really my mother's sister?" The woman nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian looked straight at the woman. "In other words, you have the same bloodline as me, right?" The woman smiled slightly, "Yes." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Can you show me?" The woman laughed, "Little fellow, you're really cautious, but it's a good thing." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and in the next moment, an emerald light suddenly appeared around her body. Not only that, but Yi Xian also noticed that the blood vessels on her right hand had suddenly bulged. Those were emerald green blood vessels. Yi Xian was slightly curious. What bloodline is this? The woman blinked. Immortal bloodline. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Immortal bloodline? The woman smiled and said, Immortal bloodline. Once activated, it possesses extremely terrifying self-healing abilities. If cultivated to the extreme, so long as it's not erased in a single move, then no matter how serious the injury is, it can be healed. Even if the physical body is shattered, this bloodline can automatically restore the physical body. Not only the physical body, but even if the soul is shattered, it can instantly reform. Simply put, so long as it's not directly erased by the opponent, then it won't die. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "It's that terrifying?" The woman nodded and smiled. "It's that terrifying." It can be said that after this bloodline is activated, there are very, very few people in this world who can kill it besides those true almighty experts. Or perhaps it's even difficult to die. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "What kind of almighty experts are you talking about?" The woman pointed at herself. "For example, my kind." Yi Xian was speechless. The woman continued, "There's also the Qing kind. No bloodline is of any use when she slashes down with her sword. Because she can sever everything with a single slash of her sword, and she can truly erase a person." Yi Xian nodded, "I understand." As he spoke, he looked at the woman. "Help me activate my bloodline." The woman smiled and said, "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm and pressed it lightly on Yi Xian's shoulder. Bang! In an instant, Yi Xian's body trembled violently, and then the blood in his body suddenly started trembling violently. The crazy demonic bloodline was resisting. The woman smiled slightly. "I have to suppress the crazy demonic bloodline first. I have to cooperate and don't resist, otherwise, it won't let the other bloodline awaken." As she spoke, she gently exerted force with her right hand. Bang! In an instant, the crazy demonic bloodline in Yi Xian's body was directly suppressed by a powerful force. Sensing this scene, Yi Xian's expression became solemn. This woman's strength was so terrifying. She could actually suppress the crazy demonic bloodline so easily. At this moment, the woman smiled and gently raised her right hand. Bang! Yi Xian's eyes widened. At this moment, he felt as if something was about to come out of his body. Gradually, some dark green light appeared around his body. Immortal bloodline. And Yi Xian found that the blood in his body gradually began to turn emerald green. His blood was changing. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and at this moment, he felt like he was floating. Because the power of the bloodline was a little comfortable. The crazy demonic bloodline was very powerful, but it could not be controlled. Moreover, people would go crazy, and that kind of feeling was really not good. But this bloodline was different. This bloodline gave him a very comfortable feeling. Gradually, the blood in Yi Xian's body slowly transformed. And during this process, Yi Xian did not feel any discomfort. After a long time, Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something. He looked at the woman. "Just now, you said that you can help me improve my soul?" The woman nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian was a little curious. "How do you improve it?" The woman smiled, "Using souls to supplement souls." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Using souls to supplement souls?" The woman nodded. "Not long ago, I picked up a batch of powerful souls. After absorbing them, I should be able to break through the limit of my soul. And, when I leave, I will also leave behind a fortune, enough to help change the entire five-dimensional universe. Yi Xian blinked his eyes. Fortune. The woman smiled. No matter what, you are my nephew, I will definitely treat you well. Chapter 1479. Auntie. Yi Xian glanced at the woman. He was now certain that this woman was related to his mother. Because his new bloodline power was the same as this woman's bloodline power. Moreover, the other party could know so many things. Was the other party really here to help him? His intuition told him that things might not be so simple. But he couldn't tell what was wrong. At this time, the mysterious woman smiled slightly. Don't think too much, feel the bloodline. Yi Xian nodded and slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, his whole body was warm and very, very comfortable. He had to admit that he was a little excited at this moment. If this immortal bloodline was really so abnormal, then with his Taoist physique, who could kill him? Moreover, he also had the ancestral dragon scale. Once the scale was forged into a treasured armor, it could be said that his physical body would be extremely tough. Even if he stood there and let a consolidation realm expert slash at him, the opponent would not be able to kill him. Thinking of this, Yi Xian looked forward to it even more. With the help of the woman, the mad demon bloodline in his body had been completely suppressed, and the new bloodline was slowly taking over his body. After the bloodline had been dormant for more than 20 years, it was even happier than Yi Xian himself when it regained its freedom. About half an hour later, the woman withdrew her hand. She retreated to the side and said with a smile, "It's done." Yi Xian opened his eyes and clenched his fists. In an instant, the blood in his body quickly flowed from his body, and an emerald light appeared around him. It was very comfortable. Yi Xian looked at the woman. My bloodline activation was successful? The woman nodded, yes. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then asked, then what about my crazy demon bloodline? The woman said with a smile, the crazy demon bloodline did not disappear, but it was temporarily suppressed by me. In the future, when you need to use it, it will naturally appear, but under normal circumstances, it won't be used, right? Yi Xian nodded, that's true. The woman continued, actually, the two bloodlines can coexist, but I'm afraid it's a little difficult to control right now, so I can only separate them and slowly try to control them in the future. It will be very interesting if the two bloodlines can coexist because the undying bloodline can make up for the flaws of the mad demon bloodline. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. The mad demon bloodline was equivalent to self-mutilation, but the undying bloodline could restore the body. Meanwhile, the woman spoke abruptly, we'll slowly comprehend the bloodline energy in the future. Let me help you improve your divine soul. As she spoke, she opened her palm and a white jade bottle appeared in her hand. Yi Xian was a little curious. This is? The woman smiled and said, soul body. A very powerful soul body. A soul body. Yi Xian glanced at it, and soon, his expression became unprecedentedly solemn. There were at least tens of thousands of souls inside. These souls were at least at the peak of the immortal state, and many of them might have surpassed the immortal state. Yi Xian looked at the woman in shock, these are? The woman smiled faintly, they were all bad people, and I killed them. And I've erased all their memories, and now they're a great tonic for you. After absorbing these souls, your divine soul should reach a very terrifying level. Yi Xian looked at the white jade bottle and did not speak. The woman smiled, are you worried? Yi Xian looked at the woman. These souls are too powerful. The woman laughed, if they're not powerful, it's useless to absorb them. Yi Xian was silent. The woman smiled, it seems that you still think I'll harm you. Really, I'm in critical condition. If I make a move now, other than my Qing, no one will be able to save him. You should know that I'm not lying, right? Yi Xian was still silent. The woman shook her head and smiled, little guy, I said so much because you're my nephew. If you want to become stronger, it's not impossible to ignore these souls. I won't force you. With that, she put away the white jade bottle. Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Where is my mother now?" The woman smiled, "A very far place." Yi Xian asked, "How far?" The woman thought for a moment and said, "I don't know, but it's very, very far." Father is the same. Many people are helping to fight against the cause of calamity. With that, she raised the white jade bottle in her hand. "Do you want it or not?" The souls of over 10,000 super experts can not only make my divine soul stronger, it can also make my soul subduing sword achieve a qualitative change. Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." The woman passed the white jade bottle to Yi Xian. Yi Xian took the white jade bottle, but he did not absorb it immediately. The woman blinked. "If you absorb it now, I can help you improve." Yi Xian smiled, "There's no hurry, auntie. Didn't you say that you have some treasures for me?" The woman smiled, "Of course." With that, she took out a spatial ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the mustard seed ring. Soon, his expression turned serious. The woman smiled, moved. Yi Xian looked at the woman and nodded. The treasures in the spatial ring were enough to change the entire fifth dimension. They could make the fifth dimension reach an unprecedented level. The woman looked around. "I should also go. Take care of yourself." Yi Xian looked at the woman. "Where are you going?" The woman smiled. "A very far place. We'll meet again in the future." With that, she turned and left. Under Yi Xian's gaze, the woman disappeared into the horizon. In the same place, Yi Xian looked at the white jade bottle and the spatial ring in his hand. At this time, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "You don't believe this woman?" Yi Xian nodded. Yi Jiming was a little confused. "Why?" Yi Xian said softly, "One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. My soul is not strong enough, and then someone immediately came to give me powerful souls for me to absorb. My fifth dimension wants to develop, and then someone came to give me so many treasures that can change the entire fifth dimension. Is this a coincidence? Maybe it is, but I can't be too cautious. If someone dug a hole for me, wouldn't it be a pain in the ass?" Yi Jiming said in a low voice, "Do you think she is little ant?" Yi Xian looked at his body, then said, "She has the same bloodline as me, so it should be true. However, her appearance is a little suspicious. Also." As he spoke, he looked at the white jade bottle and storage ring in front of him. "I can tell at a glance that these powerful souls are not simple, and with these treasures, I think she might have gone to rob a powerful force. Anyway, I have to be more careful. When the time comes, I will go to the Nether Palace and ask that big ant if she knows this little ant. If she does, then she is really one of us. That would be for the best. If she doesn't." At this point, he did not continue. Yi Jiming also fell silent. Neither of them wanted to think about the worst. At this time, Yi Xian said, "I will go to the Nether Palace now." With that, he was about to leave, but at this moment, the white jade bottle in his hands suddenly shattered, and the next moment, countless souls rushed into his forehead like a tide. Boom! Yi Xian's body trembled violently, and a powerful soul aura swept out from his body, causing the space around him to tremble like an earthquake. It's over. This was the thought in Yi Xian's mind at this moment. The other party actually used force. This was definitely a trap. Damn it. Is this woman really my little ant? On the other side, the mysterious woman looked at Yi Xian in the distance, a faint smile on her face. What a cautious guy, I actually failed to trick him. However, this karma, I have to accept it even if I don't want to. Not far away, Yi Xian was madly absorbing those souls, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. If he did not absorb those souls, they would burst his body. He had to absorb them. Not only did he have to absorb them himself, but he also had to use the soul-suppressing sword to help him. Because those souls were too powerful. Just like this, after about 4 hours, the soul aura around Yi Xian finally calmed down, and beside him, the soul-suppressing sword trembled violently, emitting a powerful soul aura that could really destroy the world. The soul-suppressing sword had broken through and reached an unprecedented level of strength. Even Yi Xian did not know what level it had reached. In any case, there was only one word to describe it: powerful. And his own divine soul was also unprecedentedly strong. After his divine soul became stronger, he realized that with a thought, his divine sense could cover a radius of millions of miles, and he could even clearly sense an ant within millions of miles. At this moment, he felt that the whole world had become clear. This feeling was too wonderful. But soon, Yi Xian's face darkened. Why did that woman do this? Moreover, he had the same bloodline as her, which meant that she might really be his little aunt. Since she was his little aunt, why would she do this? Dig a hole for him? Yi Xian was silent. Although his divine soul had greatly improved, he could not feel happy at all. Because his intuition told him that this was not a good thing. At this moment, Yi Jiming suddenly said, "But if that woman really wanted to die, she could have just killed him. Why would she dig a hole for him?" Yi Xian shook his head. "That's what I'm confused about." Yi Jiming said solemnly, "Do you want to use the treasures in the storage ring?" Yi Xian looked at the storage ring and said softly, "I do. I've already absorbed these souls anyway. If there's bad karma, even if I don't use this storage ring, I'm afraid it's useless." Saying so, he looked at the horizon. "Go back." Then, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. In the clouds, the woman looked at Yi Xian in the distance with a complicated look in her eyes, so similar. P.S. Did anyone force me to have a monthly ticket? Chapter 1480. The Five-Dimensional Universe. After returning to the five-dimensional universe, Yi Xian immediately called Bai Dizzy. In the hall, Bai Dizzy looked at the storage ring in Yi Xian's hand with a solemn expression. "These treasures," Yi Xian smiled. "Shocked, right?" Bai Dizzy nodded. Yi Xian said softly, "I'm shocked too." As he said that, he told them about the mysterious woman. After listening to Yi Xian's words, Bai Dizzy immediately shook his head. "This woman's purpose is not pure." Yi Xian asked, "Why do you think so?" Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, "She may really be related to you, but if it was for your own good, she would never force you to absorb those souls. Moreover, don't you think her appearance is a bit too coincidental?" Yi Xian nodded and said in a deep voice, "I think so too. However, with her strength, it should be easy for her to kill me. If she wanted to deal with me, there is really no need for her to do these fancy things." Bai Dizzy shook his head. "You can't think like that." Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, "It's easy to kill you, but what about after killing you? Can she live?" As he said that, he shook his head. "After the other party kills you, she definitely can't live. At least she will be retaliated." Yi Xian shook his head. He really couldn't figure out the woman's purpose. Bai Dizzy said again, "However, I also don't quite understand the other party's purpose. Because since the other party knows how powerful the woman in the plain dress is, but still dared to deal with you like this, it is definitely not normal. In any case, you have to be careful." Yi Xian nodded. He was most worried about the mysterious enemy that the third young lady mentioned. If the previous aunt was the mysterious enemy that the third young lady mentioned, then it would be a bit of a pain in the ass. Bai Dizzy suddenly said, "Right. Miss An and Miss Xiao Qi have reached the consolidation realm." Consolidation realm. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "That fast?" Bai Dizzy smiled and said, "It's mainly because of Xian City's help. Of course, the main reason is that Miss An and Miss Xiao Qi are too talented." Yi Xian nodded. Xiao Qi and Anlanxio's talent was definitely not inferior to his. Bai Dizzy continued, "Other than the two of them, Jialo, Arrow, and Lady Jiao are also showing signs of breaking through." Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Where are Amu and the others?" Bai Dizzy said, "You mean High Priest Amu of the Wu clan?" Yi Xian nodded. Of course, he did not forget this woman. He was her servant. Bai Dizzy said, the Wu clan has always been our focus. As for Miss Mu, she has already reached the Dao attainment realm. However, it will be a little difficult for her to reach the consolidation realm. Of course, Miss Mu's strength is not cultivation talent, but her intelligence. I have formed a cabinet, which is filled with some outstanding people in our fifth dimension. Miss Mu is one of them. Many of the policies were proposed by Miss Mu. Yi Xian smiled slightly. I'll go see her. Bai Dizzy nodded. Okay. Yi Xian left the hall and went to the hall where Bai Dizzy worked, which was the Daoist temple. This Daoist temple was where Bai Dizzy usually worked. At this time, a group of people were busy in the temple. There were men and women, and there were more than 50 people. They were all people that Bai Dizzy had carefully selected. These people might not be very strong, but their intelligence was top-notch. It could be said that these people were the brains of the fifth dimension. When Yi Xian walked into the hall, everyone in the hall raised their heads to look at Yi Xian. When they saw that it was Yi Xian, they immediately stopped what they were doing and stood up to greet him. Yi Xian smiled slightly. You guys continue with your work. As he said this, he looked at a woman in the corner and smiled. My high priest, shall we go out for a walk? Amu looked at Yi Xian. After a while, she smiled sweetly. Okay. The two left the hall. Yi Xian, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. He brought Amu to the city. At this time, Dao City was very prosperous. The streets were filled with people, and the majority of them were cultivators. Moreover, they were very strong. This was because there were two attractive places in Dao City. First, there were complete versions of Dao scriptures. Second, the headquarters of the Fifth Dimension Academy was located here. All the major powers in the universe wanted to send their people to the Fifth Dimension Academy. This included the ancient superpowers like the Nanhua family and the Gu family. This was because the temptation of Dao scriptures was too great. Although they had obtained some of the contents of Dao scriptures, their cultivation methods and martial arts were still in the hands of Yi Xian. As for the whirling school, although they also had it, they didn't dare to spread it. Therefore, if one wanted to learn Dao scriptures, martial arts, and Dao scriptures, there were only two places. One was the fifth dimension, and the other was the Dao sect. However, Dao Gate was not open to the public. Therefore, they could only come to the fifth dimension. At this time, Amu suddenly said in a soft voice, I thought you had forgotten about me. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and smiled. How could I forget about you? Even if I forget about myself, I will not forget about you. Amu turned her head and looked at Yi Xian. A moment later, her expression became somewhat complicated. You have grown so fast. Yi Xian turned his head to look at Amu and smiled. No matter how fast I grow, I will always be your witch's servant. Amu stopped and looked at Yi Xian. Are you still my witch's servant? Yi Xian looked straight at Amu. I will be your witch's servant for a lifetime. Not only your witch's servant, but also the Wu clan's witch's servant. Amu looked at Yi Xian for a long time. After a long time, she suddenly pulled Yi Xian's hand and smiled. You must remember what you said. Yi Xian held Amu's hand. I never lie to my own people. The corner of Amu's mouth rose. The witch's servant I found is the strongest in the history of the Wu clan. Yi Xian laughed. Amu suddenly said softly, meeting you and choosing you is my fortune, and also the Wu clan's fortune. Yi Xian shook his head. Meeting you is my fortune. Amu smiled mischievously. Do you really think so? Yi Xian smiled. I told you. I never lie to my own people. Amu blinked. I'm one of your own people? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Amu smiled. Thank you. Actually, at first I really thought you had forgotten about me. I didn't dare to look for you because I was afraid you would really forget about me. I just didn't expect you to take the initiative to look for me. Yi Xian said softly, I'm sorry. Amu shook her head. I know you are very busy. Moreover, the enemies are getting stronger and stronger. As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. Do we still have powerful enemies? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Amu sighed softly. When will it end? Yi Xian smiled. It's fine. I'll carry it. As he said that, he pulled Amu to the noodle shop. He looked at the owner of the noodle shop and said with a smile, Boss, 2 bowls of noodles. The owner laughed. Sir, please wait a moment. I'll be right there. As Yi Xian and Amu took their seats, many people around them looked over, mainly at Amu. Amu was a great beauty. Coupled with her gentle personality, she gave people a very comfortable feeling. Soon, 2 bowls of noodles were served. Yi Xian looked at Amu and said with a smile, I especially like eating noodles. Amu blinked. Were you poor when you were young? Yi Xian smiled. You investigated me? Amu nodded. Yi Xian looked at the noodles in front of him. At that moment, he thought of Yi Ling again. He did not know how that little girl was doing now. However, with that mysterious senior around, Yi Ling's safety would definitely not be a problem. At that moment, laughter suddenly came from the side. What a beautiful woman. Hearing that, Yi Xian frowned slightly. He turned his head and saw a young man walking over slowly from afar. The man was wearing a purple brocade robe. If this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. There was a piece of green jade tied to his waist. The jade was the size of a palm and emitted a dark green glow. It was obvious that it was no ordinary item. And in his right hand, he held a long sword. The man was handsome and dressed luxuriously. The moment he appeared, he attracted the attention of many people, especially women. Many women around looked at the man with smiles on their faces and covered their mouths as they whispered. Actually, the man's looks were secondary. The most important thing was that the man was carrying a sword. One look and you could tell that he was a swordsman. It should be known that the most popular person in the entire 5th dimension was a swordsman. This was because the master of the 5th dimension, who was also the dean of the 5th dimension academy, Yi Xian, was a swordsman. Behind the young man, there was an old man. The old man carried a sword and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. One look and you could tell that he was an expert. The man slowly walked to the side of Yi Xian and Amu. He looked at Amu and smiled. Miss, there is still an empty seat here. May I sit here? Amu looked at a certain badge on the man's chest. She smiled and shook her head. It's not convenient. The man was not angry. He smiled and said, Miss, let me introduce myself. I am Nanma Chuan. Nanma Chuan. As soon as the man's voice fell, there was a cry of surprise. Oh my God. He's that Nanma Chuan. It's really him. He's Nanma Chuan from the number 1 family in the south, the Nanma family. The number 1 swordsman of the south, Nanma Chuan. I heard that his overall score reached 9 stars. 9 stars. So he's here to join the 5th Dimension Academy's headquarters? That's for sure, 5th Dimension Academy. In front of Amu, Yi Xian blinked his eyes and looked at Nanma Chuan. You're from the 5th Dimension Academy? Nanma Chuan looked at Yi Xian. Let me correct you. I'm currently from the 5th Dimension Academy's headquarters. Yi Xian pointed at himself. He was a little puzzled. You don't know me? Nanma Chuan smiled. Should I know you? Yi Xian turned to look at Amu. Amu covered her mouth and chuckled. She used her mystical chi to transmit her voice. Every academy has a statue of you and Miss Nian Nian. However, that statue is a little exaggerated. In addition, you're wearing 2 ordinary clothes. Moreover, your aura is restrained and you don't have the aura of a ruler. Therefore, it's normal that he doesn't know you. In fact, it's not just them. Many people in the city don't really know you. Because you spend very little time in the city, people rarely come into contact with you. Even if they see you, they won't think of you immediately. Yi Xian was speechless. He was too low-key. At this time, Nanmu Chuan looked at Amu. How should I address you, miss? Amu smiled. She pointed at Yi Xian. Do you know who he is? Nanmu Chuan glanced at Yi Xian. He smiled. I don't know. I don't want to know either. Amu was a little curious. Why? Nanmu Chuan smiled. Miss, forgive me for being blunt. He's not worthy of you. Yi Xian lowered his head and ate his noodles. He didn't say anything. This was too tragic. His position as the master of the fifth dimension was really too tragic. It was fine if outsiders didn't know him. But no one in the city had noticed him. When he got back, he had to have a good talk with Bai Dizzy. Nanmu Chuan looked at Amu. Miss, do you really not want to get to know me? I feel that if you don't get to know me, first of all, I will feel very regretful. Second, I feel that this is a loss for you. Amu gently kicked Yi Xian. She was a little dissatisfied. My witch's servant, stop eating. Yi Xian wiped his mouth and looked at Nanmu Chuan. She's my high priestess, and I'm her witch's servant. She won't get to know another man. Nanmu Chuan shook his head and smiled. He took out a storage ring and placed it in front of Yi Xian. There are 100 fortune divine crystals inside. There's also a scroll of my sword Dao mental cultivation method and insights. It's enough to change your fate. Leave her, and these are all yours. Yi Xian. End of this chapter. Chapter 1481. 100 Fortune Divine Crystals. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn it, I still have a few 100 million in my storage ring. Amu covered her mouth and snickered. At this moment, she did not look like a high priestess. Instead, she looked like a young girl in love. When Nanmu Chuan saw that Yi Xian did not speak, he took out another storage ring. 200 Fortune Divine Crystals. 200. Yi Xian was about to speak when Nanmu Chuan threw out another storage ring. 1,000 Fortune Divine Crystals. 1,000. Someone exclaimed in surprise. 1,000 Fortune Divine Crystals was not a small amount. One should know that the most common crystals in the market were ordinary crystals. Only some of the major forces had Fortune Divine Crystals. There was another reason why many people racked their brains to enter the Fifth Dimension's Academy. The Academy would provide them with Fortune Divine Crystals. For an ordinary person, 1,000 Fortune Divine Crystals was enough to change their fate. Yi Xian looked at Nanmu Chuan and smiled. So what if you're rich? Nanmu Chuan smiled. Being rich isn't necessarily a big deal. But without money, one must be a coward. What do you think? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. You're right. Without money, one must be a coward. But I don't understand. Didn't your academy teach you how to behave? First of all, it's rude of you to interrupt us while we're eating noodles. Secondly, you insulted me with money. That's very tasteless. I remember there's a rule in the academy. Disciples are not allowed to bully the weak or... Nanmu Chuan suddenly interrupted Yi Xian. I'm sorry. There's no such rule in the academy. Yi Xian looked at Nanmu Chuan. Then there's one now. I said it. Nanmu Chuan narrowed his eyes. He had already noticed that something was wrong. Amu was also silent. She knew that Yi Xian was a little angry. Bullying the weak was what Yi Xian hated the most. Simply put, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Nanmu Chuan looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, looks like you're not an ordinary person. However, aren't you a little too arrogant? Do you think you can change the Academy's rules just because you say so? Yi Xian smiled and said, I think we should give people a chance to turn over a new leaf. Now, apologize to both of us, sincerely apologize, and we will forgive you. What do you think? Nan Muchuan laughed. Sir, you think too highly of yourself. Yi Xian faintly smiled. Then I will now announce that you are disqualified from entering the Fifth Dimension's Academy. Nan Muchuan looked at Yi Xian and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Who the hell are you? He was not stupid. At this moment, he already felt that something was wrong. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, a voice sounded out from the side. Brother Nanmu, this person sure is arrogant. Yi Xian turned his head and saw a man striding over from afar. Nan Muchuan was slightly surprised when he saw this person. Then, he smiled and said, Oh, it's Brother Fang Jin. Fang Jin. Someone in the crowd exclaimed, he's also Fang Jin who passed the 9 Stars Academy. This time, there were only 2 people from the south who were admitted into the Fifth Dimension's Academy. One of them was Nan Muchuan, and the other was Fang Jin. These 2 people belonged to the same academy in the south. Fang Jin cupped his fists at Nan Muchuan and then looked at Yi Xian. He smiled and said, Did you just say that you want to disqualify Nan Muchuan? Yi Xian smiled and said, Yes. Fang Jin shook his head and smiled. Don't you think it's ridiculous for you to say that? Yi Xian blinked his eyes. Is it ridiculous? Fang Jin laughed. It's not just ridiculous. As far as I know, there are only 2 people who can disqualify someone from the academy. One of them is Vice Dean by Dizzy, and the other is Yi Xian. You. At this point, he seemed to have thought of something. His pupils suddenly shrank and he took a few steps back. You, Yi Xian smiled. What about me? Fang Jin stared at Yi Xian. After a while, he said in a trembling voice, Yi. Dean Yi. As soon as he said this, the crowd was in an uproar. At this time, someone exclaimed, He's City Lord Yi. It's really him. He used to kill a fish seller here. Green City, Yi family, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The person who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a young man. The young man had a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. Beside him were the elders of the Yi family. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. The little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the family wanted to disqualify Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you disqualify him? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a family matter. Why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. It's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to disqualify him or not. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new crown prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. you should be flogged 30 times as a warning. The great elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 guards of the Yi family rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the family for so many years. Even now, he is fighting for the family. The family is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard smiled coldly. Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of crown prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She just covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard quickly bowed. Subordinate Jianghu greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply. I will go through fire and water for the crown prince. I will do anything for you. Yi Lang nodded. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood. Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man wore a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes. His face was dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He charged at Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian ignored Jianghu. Walking up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall, and asked timidly, Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged, whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times, as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the prince's position. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled, What's your name? The guard quickly bowed. This subordinate, Jianghu, greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded, You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and quickly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded, Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand? Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and his robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Bang! Jianghu's head spun, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, Your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu, and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Chapter 1482. Kill him. There was complete silence. Around them, some people secretly shook their heads. Was there something wrong with Nanmachuan's brain? Facing Yi Xian, not only did he refuse to admit defeat, he even said such ruthless words. Did he really think that Yi Xian was a good-tempered person? Overturn the Fifth Dimension Academy? How stupid would he have to be to say such words? Yi Xian shook his head. He turned to look at Amu and smiled. Let's go. Amu nodded. The two of them left. On the way, Amu said softly, "It's our fault. When we go back, I will strengthen the management of the various academies, especially the education on how to behave." Yi Xian shook his head. "It's my problem." Amu looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "I seemed too easy to talk to at the beginning. He felt that I was weak. This world is like this. Some people have a good temper, but in the eyes of others, a good temper means that they are easy to bully. However, a good temper does not mean that they have no temper." As he said that, he shook his head. There are many people. They like to bully the weak and fear the strong. They like to bully the kind and honest because the kind and honest are easy to bully. There are also some people who like to use moral coercion. Just look at Nanmachuan. He actually said that I am the headmaster and cannot kill him. Killing him would be breaking the law. It really amused me. This is like a mother of a naughty child. Her child has made a mistake. However, she does not educate her child. Instead, she educates you and questions you. He is still a child. How can you be so calculative with a child? Amu shook her head and smiled. Your analogy, Yi Xian smiled. It's not particularly appropriate. But you should understand what I mean. Amu nodded. She seemed to have thought of something. She hesitated and then said, "But you are the headmaster. This matter should not be handled personally. I am afraid that someone will use it." Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Who dares? Amu was silent. In the fifth dimension, no one dared to stab Yi Xian in the back. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Amu, what do you think they came to the headquarters for?" Amu said, "Learn." Yi Xian asked, "What else?" Amu was silent. Yi Xian smiled and said, "They are not only here to learn, but also to protect the five-dimensional universe." The fifth dimension. Was it Sister Nian's fifth dimension? Is this my, Yi Xian's, five-dimensional universe? No, the fifth dimension is everyone's fifth dimension. Anyone who lives in the fifth dimension has the obligation to protect our fifth dimension. The academy is not a safe place for them to enjoy. I, Yi Xian, will not spend money to feed a bunch of conceited people. As he spoke, he looked at Amu. Remember, we're not doing charity. For some people, if you help them once, they will shed tears of gratitude. But if you help them 10 times, they will feel that it's only right. And if you don't help them anymore, they might even see you as an enemy. I'm telling you this because I realize that our academy lacks a core purpose. What is the purpose of entering the school? There's nothing wrong with learning. But what else? I don't ask them to serve me, Yi Xian, but they must serve this universe. Do you understand? Amu nodded. I understand. Yi Xian nodded. You can talk to Bai Dizzy about this. He will handle it. Amu smiled and said, Old Bai is very busy. Let me handle this matter. I will come up with a plan first, then I will submit it to you. You can make the final decision. Yi Xian nodded. Okay. Amu smiled. Come back for noodles next time. Yi Xian laughed. Okay. After chatting for a while, they parted ways. Yi Xian did not return to the sword hall directly. Instead, he went to the boundless dungeon. Tendo pawn shop. When Yi Xian came to the Tendo pawn shop, the door was open. There was a woman standing behind the counter inside the door. It was Xiao Dao. As if sensing something, Xiao Dao suddenly looked up. When she saw Yi Xian, she was slightly stunned. Yi Xian walked into the pawn shop and smiled. They told me that you've been living here? Xiao Dao nodded. Yes. Yi Xian looked around and said softly, I haven't been here for a long time. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. You're very busy now. Yi Xian smiled. I'm a little busy. Xiao Dao said softly, when will Nian Nian regain her memory? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Xiao Dao was silent. Yi Xian was about to speak. At this moment, the space in front of him trembled slightly. Yi Xian frowned. Xiao Dao asked, what's wrong? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Nian Nian is gone. Gone. The little Daoist was stunned for a moment before saying, it disappeared? Yi Xian nodded. I'm going back. After saying that, he disappeared. In the pawn shop, Xiao Dao was silent for a while before disappearing. Sword Hall. When Yi Xian returned to the Sword Hall, Bai Dizzy had been waiting there for a long time. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, you said that Nian Nian is gone? Bai Dizzy nodded. Not long ago, she was wandering around the city, so I didn't pay much attention. But not long after, she disappeared. Yi Xian was silent. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, has she regained her memory? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Bai Dizzy was silent. Yi Xian said softly, have you sent anyone to look for her? Bai Dizzy nodded. But there's no news at all. Also, we don't know how she disappeared. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then said softly, there's no need to look for her. Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. I believe that she will come back. With that, he looked at Bai Dizzy. As long as Sister Nian doesn't want anything to happen to her, she won't be in danger. Bai Dizzy smiled. That's true. Then, he looked at Yi Xian. Today is the first day of school. As the dean, you should go. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't really want to go. Bai Dizzy said, is it because of Nan Michuan? Yi Xian smiled. You know about it too. Bai Dizzy said, as the most outstanding swordsman of the younger generation in the south, it's normal for him to be arrogant. Yi Xian smiled. Do you think I did something wrong? Bai Dizzy shook his head. No. Through this matter, I discovered a problem. Many people in the fifth dimension respect you, but they don't fear you. If I were the one who appeared, that guy definitely wouldn't have threatened you. On the contrary, he would have immediately admitted his mistake and begged for mercy. Yi Xian smiled. What's the problem? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. The reason is that you're too young. Youngsters generally don't respect other youngsters. The students in the academy know you're strong, but no one knows how strong you are. Therefore, many people don't fear you. Since they don't fear you, they naturally dare to provoke you. After all, they're proud sons of heaven, and these kinds of people usually don't submit to people of the same age. Therefore, it is necessary for you to attend the start of term ceremony. At the same time, I also hope that you can tell them that in this world, there are youngsters who are more outstanding than them. Let them know that there's always someone better than you. Yi Xian said with a smile, looks like I have to go. Bai Dizzy nodded. As the dean, you should go no matter what. Moreover, you should also show your strength. Let those guys know that you, the dean, aren't some kind of trash. Yi Xian laughed. Then let's go. Bai Dizzy nodded and the two of them left. With regards to Nian Nian, Yi Xian wasn't really worried because he knew how terrifying Nian Nian was. Fifth Dimension's Academy. Dao City was unusually lively today because today was the day students from all over the universe would come to Dao City to enroll. It was also the first time the Dao City's headquarters was recruiting students. And this time, those who came could be said to be monsters among monsters, geniuses among geniuses. It could be said that this time, all the monsters and geniuses of the fifth dimension would be gathered here, including some geniuses from ancient powers. For example, Nanua Xiao and Nanua Qi of the Nanua clan. Not only the Nanua clan, but there were also geniuses from the Gu clan and Xian City. Fifth Dimension's Academy. The Fifth Dimension's Academy was built on a large scale. There were more than 60 different learning halls. In addition, there were also formations arranged by the Xuanji sect. There were all kinds of formations, more than 100 of them. As for the lineup of teachers, it was also very luxurious. Arrow, and Lanxiu, and Li Shanshui of the Whirling sect were all teachers of the academy. They were all super experts at the peak of the fifth dimension. At the entrance of the academy, there were two huge statues. One was of Nian Nian, and the other was of Yi Xian. Nian Nian was the Tendo of the fifth dimension, the soul of the entire fifth dimension, while Yi Xian was the protector of the entire fifth dimension. As the entrance of the fifth dimension's academy opened, students entered the academy one after another. Somewhere in the darkness, Bai Dizzy smiled and said, "Dao Master, what do you think of these students?" Yi Xian looked at the students in the distance and said softly, "Very outstanding." Bai Dizzy nodded, "This world doesn't lack monsters and geniuses. What it lacks is people who discover them." This time, even I was shocked by the establishment of the academy. It turns out that there are so many monsters and geniuses in our cosmos. Originally, the academy only accepted 30 people every year, but I felt that it wasn't enough, so I expanded it to 40. Yi Xian said softly, "These people are the future of the fifth dimension." Bai Dizzy nodded. The fifth dimension couldn't always be carried by Yi Xian. His intuition told him that in the future, Yi Xian would definitely go to a broader stage. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, "We need to let these guys have a sense of belonging to the fifth dimension." Bai Dizzy said with a smile, "That's natural. Actually, everyone already has a sense of belonging to the fifth dimension. Let's not talk about other things. Many people in my Dao sect have already regarded themselves as members of the fifth dimension." Yi Xian said with a smile, "That's a good thing." Bai Dizzy looked at the students in the distance and said with a smile, "Some of the branch vice deans told me to pay attention." Pay attention to what? Yi Xian was curious. Bai Dizzy said with a smile, "There are many thorns in this batch of students." At this time, a man suddenly rushed in from the distance. He was tall and sturdy, and with every step he took, the ground would tremble violently. Not only the ground, but the space he ran through would also tremble. Yi Xian looked at this man, and there was some surprise in his eyes. "Not bad." Bai Dizzy nodded. "This guy is called Man Zi. He is a body cultivator, and he is the strongest among the body cultivators. Moreover, his overall score has reached 10 stars. Yi Xian was a little curious. "What's the highest score?" Bai Dizzy said, 12 stars. This time, among all the students, only one person has reached 12 stars, and among them, there are only 6 11-star students. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this time, Man Zi suddenly rushed in front of Yi Xian's statue. He looked straight at Yi Xian's statue and roared, "Man Zi of the Great Wilderness, I challenge Dean Yi. I seek a hammer." Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1483. Begging for a hammer. Yi Xian's expression was a little strange. Next to Yi Xian, Bai Dizzy smiled and said, "Look, they are not very convinced by you. However, you have to understand. After all, they are all geniuses. It is normal for them to have drive." Yi Xian nodded, "Of course. Bai Dizzy looked at Man Zi in the distance. Everyone is waiting for you to appear. Yi Xian laughed, and the next moment, he appeared directly in front of Man Zi. Seeing Yi Xian, there was an uproar in the field. Yi Xian appeared. The eyes of all the students around fell on Yi Xian. There was respect, curiosity, excitement, and provocation. Dean. Although Yi Xian was the dean, Yi Xian was the same age as them. In addition, Yi Xian's strength was mostly legendary. For example, Yi Xian had killed a consolidation realm expert and so on. Therefore, many people had always been skeptical about Yi Xian's strength. In other words, many people wanted to know how strong Yi Xian was. Seeing Yi Xian, the barbarian chuckled. You're the dean. Yi Xian nodded, yes. Man Zi glanced at Yi Xian. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Yi Xian smiled and said, I dare. Man Zi grinned and said, let me tell you, my fist has no eyes. If I hurt you later, don't blame me, and don't make things difficult for me. Yi Xian was directly amused by this guy. It turned out that this guy was afraid that he would make things difficult for him. Man Zi asked again, is there a problem? Yi Xian smiled and said, don't worry, I will definitely not make things difficult for you. Man Zi grinned, then I won't be polite. As his voice fell, he suddenly rushed forward. With this rush, the space in front of Yi Xian directly turned into a groove. His physical strength was too strong. When he arrived in front of Yi Xian, the barbarian directly threw a punch at Yi Xian's head. It was a simple punch. However, this punch contained a powerful and overbearing force. With a single punch, the space around Yi Xian directly cracked. Needless to say, Yi Xian was still a little shocked. This punch was definitely not something an average Dao accomplished realm powerhouse could resist. And how old was this barbarian? To have such great power at such a young age, one had to say that it was very terrifying. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian punched out. Boom! Under everyone's gazes, the barbarian was sent flying out of the academy before crashing heavily onto the ground. Bang! The ground collapsed, and the barbarian's body trembled. The surroundings fell silent. One punch. Many of the students present turned solemn. Right at this moment, the barbarian slowly crawled up from the ground, and his entire body had cracked apart. Yi Xian walked over to him, and the barbarian hurriedly said, no. No more. I can't. Yi Xian smiled, I'm not going to hit you. As he spoke, he withdrew a medicinal pill and passed it to Man Zi. It's for healing. Man Zi glanced at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment, and then took the medicinal pill and consumed it. As soon as the medicinal pill entered his body, a strand of pure energy swept out from within him, and it didn't take long for his injuries to heal at a visible speed. Man Zi was slightly shocked. This. Yi Xian smiled, your physical body isn't bad, and your strength isn't bad as well. However, there's still a lot of room for growth. Man Zi hurriedly stood up and bowed respectfully. Pine City, the Yi clan's ancestral shrine. Ancestors, Yi Xian is lacking in talent and virtue. From this moment onward, Yi Xian is removed from the position of heir and will be succeeded by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile hanging on the corners of his mouth. This person was Yi Lang. And on both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a somewhat timid voice suddenly resounded in the ancestral shrine. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. The little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral shrine, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the heir, why did you remove him for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly, this is a clan matter, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look directly at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she summoned her courage and walked into the ancestral shrine. She bowed again to the elders on both sides, dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and his life is uncertain. But the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove him from the position of heir. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly said angrily, whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away from me. At this time, the new heir Yi Lang suddenly laughed, you should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder coldly said, then flog 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new heir Yi Lang, and he knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard smiled coldly, young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of heir, and it is everyone's wish. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. But she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled, what's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed, subordinate Jianghu greets the heir. Yi Lang nodded, you're not bad. After I become the heir, I will need 10 guards. You will be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and quickly bowed deeply, this subordinate will go through fire and water for the heir, and I will risk my life for him. Yi Lang nodded, drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall, don't show mercy, understand? Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu seemed to see something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his expression turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him, and snarled, your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu, and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is risking his life for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Jianghu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Do you understand?" Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man." "How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. "Pooh!" Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Chapter 1484. Who was that mysterious person just now? Yi Xian was puzzled. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian got up and left. After a while, he arrived at the Dao Gate. He was looking for Third Miss. Dao Gate. As soon as Yi Xian arrived, an old man appeared in front of him. The old man glanced at Yi Xian and cupped his fists. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian smiled. "I'm looking for Third Mississippi. Please inform her." The old man smiled bitterly. "Young Master Yi came at a bad time. Third Miss has just left." Yi Xian frowned. "Left?" The old man nodded. Yi Xian asked, "Where did she go?" The old man shook his head. "She didn't say." Yi Xian fell silent. The old man said, "Young Master Yi, do you want to go in and have a seat?" Yi Xian smiled. "Thank you. But there's no need. I still have something to deal with. Goodbye." With that said, he turned and left. After a moment of silence, the old man turned and left. It didn't take long for him to arrive in front of a large hall, within which sat a woman. It was Third Miss. The old man bowed slightly. "Third Master, young Master Yi has left." Third Miss nodded slightly. "Got it." The old man was puzzled. "Third Master, why didn't you see young Master Yi?" Third Miss felt helpless. "Because I'm afraid of death." The old man was speechless. Third Miss got up and walked to the entrance of the hall. She looked up at the sky and said softly, "I'm afraid that young Master Yi is in big trouble." After Yi Xian left the Taoist gate, his face became more and more serious. His intuition told him that Third Miss did not want to see him. But why did she not want to see him? It was simple. His enemy made Third Miss fearful, extremely fearful. Who was that enemy? Could it be that ant? A moment later, Yi Xian turned and left. He arrived at Xian City. In a certain hall, Lan Ruo shook his head. "I didn't see them, so I don't know which faction they are from." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian stood up and said with a smile, "Miss Lan Ruo, I'll take my leave first." Lan Ruo looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, take care." Yi Xian nodded. "You too." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and transformed into a streak of sword light that vanished into the horizon. Inside the hall, Lan Ruo looked at the horizon in silence. Although Yi Xian no longer had his archenemy, Dao sect, she realized that Yi Xian seemed to be in more danger. There seemed to be an invisible hand secretly targeting Yi Xian. As for who it was, she didn't know either. However, she knew that it wasn't an ordinary mastermind. After a short moment, Lan Ruo sighed softly, turned around, and left. After leaving the profound city, Yi Xian came to a starry sky and slowly closed his eyes. He was sure that he had a hidden enemy, and this enemy was very, very powerful. The sacred land. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, he thought of the sacred land. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince position. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, "What's your name?" The guard quickly bowed, "Subordinate Jianghu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and quickly bowed deeply, "I'll go through fire and water for the crown prince, and I'll risk my life for you." Yi Lang nodded, "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall, do not hold back." Understood. Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, all the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped down on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed, "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, "Great elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged, "Whether or not he is crippled, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed, "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then do it 30 times. Very quickly, Ti clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Long sized up the guard and asked with a smile, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed, "Subordinate Jianghu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You are very good. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. From now on, you will be my guard." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply, "Subordinate will go through fire and water for the prince, and I will risk my life for you." Yi Lang nodded slightly, "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Do not show mercy, understood?" Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his expression turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he rushed towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's entire face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, who was crying for help, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed, "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Chapter 1485. He ran away. The sacred lord's expression was somewhat unsightly. He had thought that Yi Xian would go down and fight. He did not expect Yi Xian to turn around and run. A moment later, the sacred lord turned and left. He came to the bamboo house. The sacred lord bowed slightly to the bamboo house. Master, Yi Xian's growth is too fast. Inside the bamboo house, the woman put down the teacup and picked up an ancient book. She opened it and smiled. There's nothing bad about it. Nothing bad about it? The sacred lord was somewhat dumbfounded. The woman chuckled. He will become even stronger. The sacred lord hesitated and said, Master, aren't you worried? The woman turned and looked outside the bamboo house. She smiled. I told you. Whether he lives or not doesn't depend on him. Whether I die or not also doesn't depend on him. At least for the next 30 years. The sacred lord was silent. The woman put down the ancient book and walked out of the bamboo house. The sacred lord hurriedly bowed. The woman stretched and smiled. Miss Nian Nian, I haven't seen her for a long time. She must have gone to find help. Who would she call? Let me think. Misson has been following him. She probably won't come. Netherhall? They are quite troublesome now. They probably won't come either. Then who else could it be? 2. Situ Tingyun? Probably not either. Both of them have been targeted by the calamity cause. Tianxiu? Probably not. After all, her main body isn't here. Oh, the three-dimensional universe. Princess, should be her. After all, she's the only one who can fight. Saying this, she seemed to have thought of something. The smile on her face gradually disappeared. Don't tell me she called that Miss Ding. If that's the case, then it'll be troublesome. At the side, the sacred lord bowed. He was puzzled. Why didn't he know any of the people his master mentioned? At this moment, the woman suddenly smiled and said, I'll go out and see if I can make more enemies for him. I'll also look for the great Tao spirit. During this period of time, don't provoke Lord Yi. It won't be long before someone comes to deal with him. After saying this, she walked into the distance. Soon, she completely disappeared into the horizon. Yi Xian returned to the 5th dimension. In the hall, Yi Xian sat on the ground with his legs crossed. At this moment, his expression was extremely solemn. Back in the sacred ground, when that divine sense locked onto him, he knew that he was no match for the owner of that divine sense. Who was this person? There was no answer. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, he felt a little uneasy. The enemy of the Holy Land was different from the Tao sect because he could not figure out their intentions. For the Tao scripture? However, the Tao scripture was no longer in his hands, and the spirit of the great Tao had already escaped. The other party had no reason to look for him. But if it wasn't for the Taoist scripture, then what was it for? Yi Xian couldn't figure it out. At this moment, a little girl walked in. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw the little girl. The person who had come was none other than Nian Nian. Nian Nian held a stick of tanghulu in her right hand and a struggling small fish in her left. Nian Nian walked in front of Yi Xian and giggled. Grilled fish. Yi Xian looked at Nian Nian. Nian Nian, where did you go before this? Nian Nian blinked. I've been playing outside all this time. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Playing outside? Nian Nian nodded. Yes. Yi Xian fell silent. Nian Nian didn't seem to be lying. Nian Nian suddenly asked softly, what's wrong? Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and shook his head. He smiled and said, it's nothing. I'll grill fish for you. Nian Nian grinned. Okay. Somewhere in the starry sky, a woman was walking slowly. This person was none other than Yi Ling. Yi Ling looked into the depths of the starry sky in the distance. We're almost there. As soon as she said that, her speed suddenly increased. Soon, Yi Ling arrived at a small village. This village was a little strange because it was in the starry sky. Yi Ling walked into the village. The village was very deserted. The surrounding light was dim, and it looked a little like a ghost village. At that moment, an old man walked out. When he saw Yi Ling, the old man frowned slightly. "You are?" Yi Ling opened her palm, and a faint light flickered in her palm. Seeing this, the old man was slightly taken aback. The next moment, he knelt down and said in a trembling voice, "Clan leader." Yi Ling nodded. "Did he store my body here?" The old man hurriedly nodded. "Yes." After a long silence, Yi Ling said, "Take me there." The old man hurriedly stood up and said in a trembling voice, "Clan leader, follow me." With that, he turned and left. At that moment, the old man's face was already covered in tears. He was happy. They had waited for countless years, and the clan leader had finally arrived. Yi Ling followed the old man. On the way, Yi Ling suddenly asked, "How many clansmen are left?" The old man shook his head. "Not many. If it weren't for young Master Yang's care back then, I'm afraid." Yi Ling was silent. The Void Spirit clan had become history. Soon, the two disappeared into the distance. Ultimate Martial Realm. Wu Li sat cross-legged on a mountain peak. He formed a seal with his hands and exuded a powerful aura. This aura was getting stronger and stronger, and it was no longer the aura that a godly state expert should have. Northern Wilderness. In the deepest part of Northern Wilderness, there was a huge stone tablet that was over 100 feet tall. The stone tablet stood in a deep pit. A few hundred feet away, a middle-aged man was walking toward the stone tablet. When he was about 100 feet away from the stone tablet, he suddenly knelt down, put his palms together, and bowed to the stone tablet. He was even chanting something piously. After a while, the middle-aged man stood up and continued walking toward the stone tablet. After about 10 steps, he knelt down again. Just like that, the middle-aged man slowly approached the stone tablet, kneeling and bowing every 10 steps. After a long time, the middle-aged man came before the stone tablet. He knelt down in front of the stone tablet, put his palms together, and said in a trembling voice, "Exalted Goddess, Yi Xian has gone too far. Not only did he absorb the souls of our clansmen, but he also took away all our treasures. Please help us, Exalted Goddess." The stone tablet did not respond. The middle-aged man bowed again. Just as he was about to speak, a woman suddenly appeared behind him. The middle-aged man turned around. When he saw the woman, his expression changed drastically. This woman was the mysterious woman who had robbed Northern Wilderness. The woman smiled. "You don't seem to want to see me." The middle-aged man quickly retreated behind the stone tablet. He stared at the mysterious woman. "What are you trying to do?" The mysterious woman blinked. "He said that he's afraid that you'll take revenge, so he wants me to kill all of you." The middle-aged man roared. "You've gone too far." The mysterious woman waved her right hand. Boom! The middle-aged man was sent flying a few hundred feet away. However, he did not die. It was obvious that the woman had shown mercy. After sending the middle-aged man flying, the mysterious woman looked at the stone tablet and slammed her fist forward. The middle-aged man's eyes almost popped out of their sockets at the sight of this. No. The stone tablet was their faith, their supreme faith. It was the most sacred existence of their era. When the mysterious woman's power blasted against the stone tablet, it shook violently. However, it did not shatter. Moreover, the mysterious woman's powerful force had vanished without a trace. A trace of surprise flashed through the mysterious woman's eyes. Not bad. At this moment, an extremely powerful aura suddenly appeared from the stone tablet. The mysterious woman blinked and said, "Farewell." With that, she turned around and disappeared. As she left, she took away many more treasures. The middle-aged man was speechless. The stone tablet gradually trembled. After a long time, an ancient voice sounded out from within it. You've gone too far. The middle-aged man hurriedly nodded. This woman isn't just an ordinary kind of bully. She comes here every few days to bully others. She's not human. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded out from within the stone tablet. Biyao, awaken the clansman. With that, a black token suddenly floated out from the stone tablet. The middle-aged man called Biyao instantly became excited at the sight of the black token. He hurriedly caught the black token. As you command, exalted God. With that, he turned around and left. Before long, countless powerful auras shot into the sky throughout the entire northern wilderness, and the seals left behind by the Tao ancestor were directly destroyed by a mysterious force. Taoism. The third young lady, who was sitting cross-legged in the main hall, suddenly opened her eyes. After a long time, she slowly closed her eyes. This crazy woman. In a small bar in the divine city, the shopkeeper behind the counter suddenly looked in the direction of the northern wilderness. In the next moment, he turned around and came to a small courtyard. He bowed slightly towards the room in front of him. Master, there's something strange in the northern wilderness. After a long time, a voice sounded out from the room. I know. The shopkeeper hesitated for a moment and then said, Do you want me to go investigate? In the bar, the voice said, No need. This isn't something you can interfere with. The shopkeeper bowed slightly and then left. Soon, many powerful auras rushed out of the northern desolate land. These mysterious experts were all above the immortal realm. After they left the northern desolate land, they went straight to the fifth dimension. Orc world. In the starry sky, a middle-aged man stood quietly. His hands were behind his back and his eyes were closed. This person was the Beast King of the Beastmen tribe. At this moment, a Beastman suddenly appeared in front of the Beast King. The Beastman bowed slightly to the Beast King. King, there's a strange movement in the northern wilderness. They seem to want to make a move on that human young Master Yi. The Beast King frowned. Has the northern wilderness gone mad? The Beastman shook his head. I don't know. I only know that the northern wilderness is furious. They are all super experts above the God realm. Above the divine realm. The Beast King was silent, his face somewhat gloomy. The orc said in a deep voice, I'm afraid that young Master Yi is no match for this northern wilderness. After a moment of silence, the Beast King sighed in a low voice. Call people to the fifth dimension. The orc was stunned. King, are we going to be enemies with the northern wilderness? That is. The Beast King's face was somewhat ugly. Do you think I want to interfere? Didn't you hear what that woman said? Her brother is dead. She wants us to be buried with him. Buried with him. Damn, she really doesn't listen to reason at all. Based on what? Based on what? I refuse to accept this. The Beast King waved his hand. Go and call people. The orc nodded and was about to leave. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the side. Call people? There's no need to call. The Beast King turned his head and looked. Not far away, a woman was slowly walking over. It was the mysterious woman from the Holy Land. The mysterious woman looked at the Beast King and smiled. From now on, the Beastmen are not allowed to take half a step out of the Beast world. The Beast King narrowed his eyes. Who do you think you are? After saying that, he punched out. The mysterious woman flicked her sleeves. Boom! The Beast King retreated tens of thousands of feet away. Not only that, the entire starry sky became illusory. The Beast King's right arm that punched out was shattered by a powerful force. The Beast King was somewhat dumbfounded. The mysterious woman looked at the Beast King and smiled. If the Beastmen dare to take a step out of the Beast world, I will destroy your Beastmen race. The Beast King stared at the mysterious woman. He was extremely shocked. Who are you? The mysterious woman blinked. I am Yi Xian's aunt. This is our family matter. Outsiders should not interfere, understand? The Beast King. P.S. The update is late. 2 more chapters. If the update is late in the future, the update will be doubled. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.